Welcome to Sacred Realms. It's a great day in Hyrule, y'all. Welcome to Sacred Realms, a Zelda Retrospective Podcast. I'm your host, Lyndon Willoughby. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Matt Willoughby. We're back in the garage again, Matt. I don't know if this is going to become like our permanent state of affairs or if it's just a thing that we're doing. It's a little cooler in here than in the courtyard, yeah. Right? It's been raining a lot, so I don't know. It's growing on me a little bit. I don't hate it.
Well, and your wife likes it more, so that makes it automatically a
because our bedroom adjoins the courtyard, yes. And we're loud.
Yes, she can hear every word we say while we record in your courtyard. Yeah,
man, I don't know if I could stand hearing every word that I say, being able to also hear the other side of the conversation. Imagine just having to listen to us talk and
just the one side.
Yeah, you don't even know what the other person is saying. That sounds miserable.
That sounds horrible.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
There's a reason we have guests.
I was going to say, what's even more fun than having one guest, Matt?
Is having two guests.
Two guests. Two returning guests.
Yes.
Two all-star Sacred Realms, like...
Veterans,
yeah.
Shall we call them?
I would say they're very experienced. They knew what they were getting into. They decided to be on this episode together, which that's a new circumstance that I'm just can't wait to see where it goes. But we're here for it. It's going to be great.
It's going to be a very interesting pod.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am super pleased to welcome onto the show simultaneously the boys from Zelda Universe. We've got Cody Davies from Australia, notably from Australia, and we've got Josh. How are y'all doing?
Howdy.
Crikey.
Well, there you go. There. Now we know who's who.
It's all pretty on brand so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not much has changed.
It's all exactly the same.
We're super happy to have both of you on the show tonight. Obviously, this is a very busy time for all of us. I know Matt and I are kind of feeling that a little bit, and we just do this part-time, right? I mean, this is a thing that we kind of log into once a week to chip away at, and y'all live in it. I mean, you have an entire online presence that's sort of dedicated to all the craziness that's happening in this community right now. It's an exciting time to be talking to you for sure. I mean, Cody, just question real quick. I mean, how are things going over at Zelda Universe in the midst of all this? Or are y'all experiencing the same windfall of traffic that we kind of have been on our show in probably a much bigger way?
To some extent, I think we have a couple of sites running. One of them is Zelda Universe and another one is ZeldaMaps.com. And Zelda Maps is the one that has really blossomed out in traffic because that's an interactive map of Tears of the Kingdom where you can mark off, I've completed this shrine and all that kind of thing. And so that's sort of a very accessible way to look stuff up. Zelda Universe is going well also, but I think it's still quieter because everyone's still finishing the game, which we're a month in now, but people are still, as we may discuss later, still have a lot to go, even if they're 100 hours in. And so a lot of the takes aren't here yet. We expect to have a lot of takes over the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder to write columns and features or even to write a guide when you haven't actually played the game yet.
Yeah, that's fair.
So there's not having a full picture of the game yet, and there's also just our spoiler policy, which is basically, if Nintendo hasn't officially announced it, we're not going to post about it, which it makes it a little difficult to talk about some of the main walkthroughs and guides and stuff and promote them because even the titles and thumbnails can be spoilers. So it's we're trying to be considerate, but it also means that we're probably missing out on some of that traffic that we could be getting if we were spoiling everything in all the thumbnails on YouTube.
I think the community probably appreciates your very considerate approach that you're taking to that. I am wondering, is there a statute of limitations on that policy? I mean, what if, let's say that Nintendo, never really publicly is dropping any Twitter videos that kind of speak to the ending of the game or whatever, I mean, is there some point where you just say, all right, it's been 6 months or whatever. We're gonna let everybody know. We're gonna be very upfront about like, hey, the time has come. We're gonna start featuring articles about, timeline implications or whatever.
That's exactly the policy.
But it was basically, it's all been very vague because we had no idea what was coming when we were planning all this. So we're going to review it. We're sort of continually reviewing spoiler stuff because, for example, we just posted today official art of Raru, who appears in the prologue but has not actually been officially named by Nintendo up until this point. But, now they're starting to do some releases, and so we can sort of mention them. But, there's some things that it is on a case-by-case basis when it comes to spoilers. Like, there are some things that we're just not going to touch for the next 6 months, and there are some things that are just like, here's a funny picture of a Bokoblin camp or something that, is new content, but we don't think it's a spoiler, or we don't think people will care that we've posted it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. At what point does, and I think this probably falls under the 6 month-ish rule, the guides and everything that you guys post normally, would that be around that 6 month-ish rule time?
So we're actually publishing guides. We have lots of guides written and published. We are just not broadly throwing them out on Twitter. We're kind of saying, here's our Tears of the Kingdom index. We've got guides. If you want to go find them, go find them.
Mm-hmm.
And even in there, there's just broad categories. Like once you hit the index, it doesn't just list out the names of all the dungeons, right? It lists, click here to look at the main quests, click here to look at the shrines, the side quests. So you have to go digging for it a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just kind of saying broadly, here's our guides, rather than saying, here's the guide for this specific spoiler.
But for the people who do want that, they have it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the thing. We're not going to not make any guides for the next 6 months. It's just from a website traffic perspective, which I guess was what we were initially discussing. It is difficult to get those guides going when you can't mention, are there dungeons? Do dungeons have a name?
Well, even more broadly,
kind of
thing. If you're talking about the depths at all, right? Like that's a thing.
Yeah. All of this stuff is very, I don't know. We'll continue to review it. It might be that after 3 months, there's a bunch of stuff that we feel comfortable publishing. But I do think a lot of people who are a bit less sickos than we are will be spending like a year getting through this game gradually, spending half an hour a day being like, oh, I'll find a new shrine or something, rather than trying to mainline the whole thing.
Yeah. I think that's a really good policy. And also for anyone that didn't know, that wanted to know, now you know. There are Zelda Universe guides out there for a lot of things that you may be stuck on or have trouble with. So if you're looking for something specific, be sure to go hit up our partners at Zelda Universe for anything over there that you might need help with.
And also Zelda Maps, right? I mean, that sounds like a really great tool. I mean, am I to assume that that's got stuff like, I don't know, like Korok seeds, shrines, side quests, like all that kind of stuff?
So that's got everything, and it is a spoiler, but we can sort of post it because the spoiler is not in the thumbnail or in the title. We're just saying, here's a Zelda map. If you want the spoilers, you've got them. And so we're like, here's every cave, here's every well, just any point of note on the interactive map that would appear on the map in game. is also going to be listed on ZeldaMaps.com. So it is a useful resource, and it is invaluable if you are a 100% completionist. Trying to get every Korok seed without one of these interactive maps where you can tick off the ones you've already done is a nightmare. So it becomes almost necessary at some point, if you're going to become an actual 100% completionist, to have a look at these interactive maps.
It's a nightmare no matter how you do it.
That's
but at
for
least
sure.
This way you can actually do it.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, obviously, there's no armor in the world that can protect you from the wrath of a few randos on the internet, right? Like, you can never make everybody happy, but I definitely think that intentionality and kind of trying to keep a very even-handed policy, like trying to cover as many bases as you can is the best approach, and it sounds like that's what y'all are doing. So definitely kudos, because I would imagine that, especially not knowing the structure of the game up front before release, I would imagine that was difficult to adequately plan for in advance. Like, I'm sure that was I'm sure that it was very hectic trying to put together a plan of action for that as you were all figuring out what the game was together.
Yes, for sure. It's like we're still kind of figuring out some of it. Like, a lot of the early guides are focused on main quests and on shrines and on just like major pain points, because nobody knew for sure that caves were a thing. Nobody knew wells were a thing. Like, no one knew there were side quests and side adventures. Like, there was a whole bunch of stuff there was just no way we could plan for. So, a lot of the early guides are the things we could plan for better.
Yeah, we definitely have a very surprising embarrassment of riches with this game, which we'll talk a little bit about that in the main chunk of the episode. It's a really incredible thing that there's a lot of different angles to, and I'm excited to get into it. Before we do housekeeping and get into the main body of the episode, though, what I do want to do, mostly because, like I said earlier, we've got a lot of new people listening to the show week over week, which is amazing. Thank you all for joining us. I mean, this is week 5 of our Tears of the Kingdom coverage, and if this is your first episode, then we appreciate you being here. Feel free to go back and listen to the at least the 4 previous ones before this, because I think it's a pretty good minimally spoilery grounding in the Tears of the Kingdom early experience. Last week's was just a little bit more spoilery than that. It was a bit more plot heavy, but we've got adequate warnings to cover that. But yeah, since we do have so many people here, I would love for you to both reintroduce yourselves and kind of tell our audience who you are and what job you both do over at Zelda Universe. And I'm going to throw it to Josh first.
So my name is Joshua, or I go by Watcher Joshua most places. I am one of the webmasters of Zelda Universe. I oversee all of our... Basically, I oversee ZeldaUniverse.net, the website, everything that is all the articles that are published, all of the coding stuff we got to do to make it work. That's me, so I kind of jump into everything, helping out just wherever help is needed. Lately, that has been writing guides for Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, that's kind of just, my whole realm, all of the publication stuff, all of the coding stuff. But I kind of just float around and make sure it all keeps going.
Wonderful. What about you, Cody?
Yeah. So I sort of help run the other half of the staff at Zelda Universe, basically the media and community side of our forums, our Discord, our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, all of those other platforms that are not actually ZeldaUniverse.net, but they are still part of the community. So between us, that's there are four webmasters at Zelda Universe, but me and Josh are the two that have the biggest staff groups, I'd say. Because Josh is looking after the news and the guides and the features and columns and anything that we actually publish on the website. And yeah, I'm sort of in charge of all of the social media side of things.
Would you say that you are the king moderator? So if there's if the Moldu King is a thing, are you the Moderic King?
You fumbled that one across the finish line, but we'll take it.
It got there.
Yeah, that's what they call me. the Moderator King.
Thank you for playing along with him, Cody. You don't have to anymore if you don't want to.
Got it in one.
God, you're insufferable.
I'm proud of myself right now.
I'll make a new forum user banner for that.
Thank you. I appreciate you. See, somebody's playing along here. This is like, some people are treating this as a collaborative media event, Matt.
Yeah, that's not what this is between you and me. No. Never has been, never will be. It's not the vibe we have. It's not what we're aiming for.
Your opinion is noted. I need you, so I'm going to let you stay.
That is accurate.
Well, cool. Thanks for introducing yourselves real quick. And of course, we're going to drop social links and user handles and all that stuff at the end of the show. But I would, just tell everybody before we kind of get into this and before that happens, Zelda Universe is a great resource for lots of different things, obviously, as we've already mentioned. So if you're not following them on all their social channels, then definitely go check that out. Zelda Universe YouTube. This show is actually featured on that channel alongside lots of other creators. So that's a great resource as well. And I'm going to have to go take a look at Zelda Maps. I'm going to have to check that out and maybe start like actually keeping track of some of this stuff that I'm doing in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to need it for the shrines for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah, it's actually our third Zelda map, I should point out. It's not the only game we have on there. We have Breath of the Wild and we have Link's Awakening for Switch. Those are the three games that we currently have interactive maps for. We've been wanting to do more, but it sort of trailed off a little bit, and then everyone got enthused again for Tears of the Kingdom.
Can I ask why? So I was going to say, the three most recent releases, right? Which is actually not true. Skyward Sword HD is slotted in there as well. And so I'm kind of curious, what was the decision process like for, doing an interactive map for Link's Awakening, but not for the Skyward Sword remaster?
There wasn't one. It was ideally the vision behind the website is that it will have maps for all of the games. I was about to make a joke that hopefully Zelda 2 would be the next one. It's just it's a matter of Zelda Universe and therefore Zelda Maps also being entirely volunteer operated.
There we go.
It tends to be what happens is when a new game comes out that people are really excited for, we get some enthusiasm and people start working on it. I think that maybe Link's Awakening was just close enough to Breath of the Wild's release that we were able to get the trail end of that and just get it done before everybody just vanished for 2 years. So that's kind of what happened. So hopefully Skyward Sword will just show up someday.
Yeah, and I have to say,
the idea is we'll do all of them.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, again, that sounds like a really great resource, and it also sounds like a ton of work. I have to say, I'm a little ashamed of myself. I completely fumbled this thing. I forgot to introduce you by your commonly accepted title as the internet's #1 Zelda 2 apologist.
This is our resident Zelda 2 fanboy.
And I forgot to introduce Cody as the internet's #1 Josh antagonist. That's my bad. Sorry, y'all.
Also accurate.
I feel like I've really been selling you both short.
Yeah, well, look, if you ever need me to come in and criticize Josh's ranking list of Zelda games, I'm always available.
We love having someone on deck for that. It's good to have people around for those things. Oh man, it's gonna be a fun episode. We've got a lot to talk about. I want to go ahead and get the housekeeping out of the way though, because we've got topics, and I think some of these are going to be going to be a lot to chew on there. Going to be some fairly substantial things. So can't wait to get into it. But before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping for you. I got to scroll back up to the top of the script. It was at the bottom from the last episode that we did, Matt. And it's like it's kind of like VHS tapes, like if you
gotta rewind it manually.
If you don't rewind it all the way, then you're setting up more work for yourself on the back end.
Don't wear out that tape, but also a prepared host would have already rewound it.
Yeah, I mean, God forbid you send this script back to Blockbuster all the way at the bottom.
That's a $3 rewinding fee.
Man,
that's tacked on top.
Man, I don't have time for that. Predatory.
The audience of this podcast young enough to get these references.
I mean, I think so. Most of the folks on our Discord are my age or older,
TV.
so you know.
There was a blockbuster in Captain Marvel, so there
That's
you go.
True. Hey,
everyone gets it.
Popular reference.
All right, y'all. If you didn't know, Sacred Realms is a weekly re-examination of The Legend of Zelda, one little slice at a time. Sacred Realms drops every Wednesday and is available on all major podcast networks. Every week we play a new section of a Zelda game, and then we sit down here to talk and to drop our hot takes. If that sounds fun to you, please head over to Apple Podcasts, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to leave us a review. 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated, and they have a chance to get a shout out here on the show. If you want more Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod to get access to our Discord channel, vote on what game we play next, and much more. Additionally, Master Sword patrons and above get their names read every week here on the show. Those legendary individuals are, we got some new ones this week, Matt.
We do.
Deck Officer. Deck Officer! I hope this person appreciates that. Like, we saw it and immediately we're just like,
I know exactly what they're referencing.
Got it.
The patron's name on Patreon is actually Deck Officer. We're not making that up.
Yeah.
It's actually Deck Officer. So there you go. Welcome.
Hey, Deck Officer, has Commander Skywalker checked in yet?
He should have been back hours ago. It's getting dark out
through
there.
the south entrance.
Why don't you go check it out? It's getting dark out there, and my friend's stuck out there in it.
There you go, Deck Officer. Welcome to Sacred Realms. In addition to Deck Officer, we have William, Connor, Shepherd Street, Matthew, Chris, Daniel, Fallout 907, Kelso, Tiffany the Star, Daxel, Patrice, Stephanie, Darknuck, Brian, George, Mike, Dylan, Lennon, Melanie, Kolku, Aiden, Rowan, Josh, Nick, Dante, Gep, Brittany, Davey, Haru the Mighty, Derek, Albert, Mark, Andy, Cameron, Ben, Daniel, Nick D_TV, Travis, Christian, Jonathan, Hyrule Interviews, aka Max Nichols, Garrett, and Drew. These are the most legendary of individuals. And what are we doing with these people this week, Matt?
Exploring the frozen wasteland of Hoth on the back of a Tauntaun to look for our friend who's missing.
It's okay. I'm allowing you to cross universes just because it's in service.
Officer.
It's in service of a bit that has like been established.
That is
already,
the only reason I'm doing this.
Okay.
Yes.
Just don't get in the habit of it.
No, next time it'll just be Hebrew or Tabantha that we're exploring on the back of a Tabantha moose.
Well, you can't have two frozen wastelands back to back.
Well, then just be in either one you want. Wherever you land on the spectrum, if you would rather be exploring Hebra on a Tabantha moose or Hoth on a Tauntaun, we will be there with you.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we still refer to ourselves as amateur podcasters.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And we will never be anything more.
It's just safer that way.
Yeah, and we like it more that way.
But with,
I mean, to be fair, I think you probably can explore the Hebrew Mountains on an ATST that you've built yourself.
That is very true. You could do that easily. Maybe not easily, but someone's done it. I promise.
I've seen a Gundam. I didn't actually see it walking. I wasn't sure if it was just like a part sculpture.
I have seen someone make a walking like monolith. It wasn't nearly as ornate as a Gundam. It was just like a stone slab with some arms that was moving.
Okay,
and it was pretty impressive.
Neat.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Also, I have seen someone do it in an X-Wing where they created Luke Skywalker's X-Wing and launched off of a sky platform, and they were just carpet bombing small towns on their way to whatever they were doing.
Good, cool. It's the Zonite Industrial Complex. And little topical, little military history humor there. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining what the industrial complex means, Lyndon. I don't think anyone knew.
Yeah. And additionally, like I said earlier, lots of new people listening. So I feel like this should just be part of the housekeeping. But a reminder too that Big Goron Sword patrons get access to monthly trading cards. I designed the art for those. Occasionally we have guest artists, but there's a new trading card every month, and so that's one of the benefits that we have on the Patreon as well. And additionally, we're spinning up a brand new thing over there just this month, which is that. For those who didn't know, I am an artist. I do illustrations for screen print on the side. I've been doing that for years, limited edition posters, that kind of thing. But I am currently doing a run of screen printed poster art primarily for our patrons. All of our patrons have access to it. The people who are in the Discord channel have actually been able to provide like feedback and see sketches and watch the process of that whole thing evolve. So that's something that I'm going to continue doing going into the future. This first one obviously is for Tears of the Kingdom because I was inspired 7 Ways to Sunday by this game. So got that one knocked out pretty quick, but other Zelda games will be coming down the road. Probably going to be just a little while because these are a bit of an undertaking. But anyway, yes, any patron of any tier on our Patreon gets first come, first serve access to those posters. So that sounds fun. That's another thing we have going on in there.
And starting this month, we will be picking back up bonus episodes, just one a month. This month's bonus episode will be a review of the Mario movie that we are very much looking forward to sitting down and doing, and that will be available to Master Sword patrons and above.
Yes, it will.
There you go.
Sounds fun.
We're dedicated to it because everybody knows about it, so you can't weasel out of it this time.
And that's actually kind of related to Zelda now, right? Because it's like the news that was breaking this week of like, oh, hey, it looks like a deal's pretty close with Illumination and the Zelda movie. And
yeah,
I've got thoughts and feelings about that, but whatever.
We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I just don't know how. I don't want to get too in the weeds about that because, like I said,
maybe later.
Thoughts and feelings. All right. So a typical episode of Sacred Realms has the Sacred Realms rundown, which is a 6-part analysis of whatever chunk of game we played that week. Currently, we're in a bonus content season where we're covering Tears of the Kingdom in a more free-form fashion. So we're not doing that. It will return the week after next with the next game that we're covering, which is Phantom Hourglass. And just by the way, apologies for the episode numbering faux pas that happened in last week's episode. I think we misnumbered our Tears of the Kingdom episodes and mistakenly said that this was going to be the final one before we get into Phantom Hourglass. That is not true. We have this one. We're going to have one more, which is going to be a community Q&A with our Discord channel. That's going to be next week. The week after that, we'll be back in our regular episode format with Phantom Hourglass. However, in this bonus season, what we're doing is subbing that out with just free-form conversations, some restricted to one topic, some just kind of more general. And this week is going to be a little bit more general. I've got a list of some things that I want to talk with Josh and Cody about. Before we get into those things, I want to send it to both of y'all and ask how far into this game you've made it. How long do you think you've played so far? How goes the Tears of the Kingdom?
We'll start with Josh.
So I have played for roughly 150 hours. I have notes written down in a notebook for all of it, for guide purposes, of course. And I have completed basically the entire main quest. I haven't seen the end yet. I believe there's still some sort of side in the depths, not technically main quest, but important to do things. I don't even know what they are. I just haven't done them. But I've only done about 80 shrines. So there's still a lot of game left.
Yeah, I was going to say 150 hours for a lot of people, I feel like is going to be barely scratching the surface level of gameplay, which is astounding to me as somebody who's like, I'm only 45 hours into this game and I'm starting to feel just a little overwhelmed by the magnitude of it, right? So, but it is just that kind of game. 150 hours could mean you've played almost none of it from just a quest standpoint, or it could mean, something in between that, or it could mean, you beat everything and then just came back to screw around with it some more. Infinite number of ways that you can do this.
I don't even have all the towers.
Wow, really?
There are, well, I have not, I could have gone and gotten them at any time, right? I just haven't. There's at least one region on the map I have literally not stepped a single foot into, I don't think. So at another one, I went and did the dungeon in and then never went back.
Oh, fair enough.
So yeah, I've got lots to do.
Yeah. How about you, Cody?
So I've been, balancing my time with other stuff. So I've only put 100 hours in, not like Joshua's 150. But to be fair, I think I've done more than him. So I think he just he loves to, I don't know what he does with his extra 50 hours. Wander
Builds
around getting
random
lost.
flying
Probably.
contraptions, does things as inefficiently as possible.
But yeah, no, I've completed all of the memories, all the dungeons, all of the depths, light routes.
Oh wow! Okay.
I haven't completed all of the shrines, but that will be easy now that I've finished up with the depths. And I've got a whole range of miscellaneous things to do. At the moment, I'm working on that or the thing in the Great Plateau where you have to drop the 4 eyes into the depths. I think some of you went and did that first, but I never got around to it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, I knocked that out around the same time that I discovered auto build, just because I was right there, right? And because I actually had a very strong urge to go check out the Great Plateau and to really kind of poke around and see what was going on there. So that's
and reactivating the goddess statue in the ruined Temple of Time was also a big thing for me personally that I was excited to do.
Yeah, definitely. Matt, real quick.
Yeah, I probably did that about 100 hours ago.
Matt, I feel like we should probably give an update real quick as well. So
yeah, sure.
Why don't you give me a rundown on where you're
Sure.
at?
So I've put in only 80 hours, my baby numbers compared to our guests, but I do have 86 shrines, 39 light routes, 46 Korok seeds. And I have done 3 of the regional phenomenons. Phenomenons is correct. Yeah. Anyway, I've done 3 of those. So I will say that I got something moderately important spoiled for me by the interwebs. So I'm kind of putting most exploration aside until I at least finish the main quest. Probably won't go all the way to the end and beat the big boss, but I'm at least going to tie up the regional phenomenons and any other kind of main questy objectives that I can find. Because I just don't want to get another thing spoiled for me. So that's kind of disappointing, but it's the nature of the beast that we live in. So I will go correct that as quickly as I can.
Yeah. So I'm at about, like I said, 45 hours. I have got all but 2 of the surface towers. I've got 52 shrines, 16 light routes, which really need to spend some more time in the depths, 55 Korok seeds, and 3 full Zonite batteries. So
yeah, I was about to say, what are y'all's battery levels at? I'm at like 6 1/3.
I have not been very diligent. I'm sitting on gobs of Zonite. I could go turn in and get stuff whenever I want, and then I just don't. So as of last night, I got to 5 2/3. It's just every once in a while I'm like, oh, I should probably go turn this stuff in and see what I can get.
Yeah, I get that.
So I've spent more time in the depths than anyone else, it seems like, because I've completed all the depth stuff. So I've got it so that I've wrapped around, like I've gotten a full bar and it's wrapped around to, a second tier of energy cells.
Okay. Oh wow, you can get a second tier? You can get more than 8?
Yeah. It will just continue going. It'll just be a different color, and it will be like a second health bar kind of situation.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
And
that's really cool.
Those are permanent, or do they?
Yeah, those you can just continue, you can just continue increasing your energy cells. If you look at the videos of the people who have Gundams and stuff, you might notice that they've got a huge amount of energy. And I don't know if you can wrap it around a third time or anything like that, because I'm not that far. But the amount that I have is enough that I can, if what I'm powering is not a mega death robot, it lasts me a good long time, for traversal and that sort of thing.
So here's something I haven't actually gone and figured out yet. Does Zonite respawn after the blood moon? Like Zonite deposits in the depths?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's just an infinite resource, and it's just a matter of how much time you put into it.
Cool. So if there is a cap on energy cells, then it's something that the game is just putting on you. It's similar to stamina wheels, right? Like even though you can I think temporarily upgrade past 3 wheels, you can only ever have 3 permanent stamina wheels.
Yeah.
And at some point, somebody's going to figure out what that number is. But that's cool. That's really good to know. I mean, that's one of those things where I think the longevity of the gameplay loop of Tears of the Kingdom is going to be in creation and the use of Zonite devices, right? And so it's good that there's potentially such a high ceiling on those. I feel like that's something that the community is going to really appreciate, especially as we start getting into years out from the release of this game. Yeah. So here's a question that I have for all of you, and I'm going to send this to Josh first. If you had to pick one, would you pick, not necessarily to spend all your time in, but just picking a favorite, sky, surface, or depths?
The surface.
Yeah. I mean, why would you say so?
The sky, I would actually say, is almost a little disappointing in how small it seems. Maybe they got a big gaping hole for some DLC or something. But there's just they're very localized puzzles, right? But I also just love the world of Breath of the Wild. And I'm not feeling it's the same world again vibe at all. It all feels new to me. And like I mentioned, there's whole regions I've still never been to. I've not been to Satori Mountain. It's on my map. I think about it occasionally. Not been there. Haven't been to Laurelin Village. There's so many just major places I know are there I haven't been to. That is where I'm spending the majority of my time, just every night picking a spot. I'm going to go here tonight and see what I can find.
Well, and you have a promise, too, of knowing, you have the knowledge that all of those places that you just mentioned, where they were points of interest in Breath of the Wild, but not much else. I mean, there's things to actually do there now, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like just tonight. Tonight I went to Spectral Rock, not having any clue what I was going to find. Wasn't disappointed. Just leave it at that. There was more there than I expected. And so that's where I'm really happy with the surface. The rest of the game is awesome. Clearly Cody has spent way more time in the depths than I have, even though I've probably spent 20 hours down there. But yeah, the surface is just, I hope this is my controversial take. I hope this is just what Hyrule is from now on. I love the layout of it. I want this to be Hyrule.
You mean this physical geometry, this exact topography and layout of the world?
Sure. Say it's 1,000 years later and the world is more different now, or Death Mountain erupted and giant craters cracked everything apart. Whatever, but make it so that this is Hyrule, not this thing where Hyrule rotates and flips around in weird ways in between every game. That doesn't make any sense.
Global warming raised the sea level, and so now if you live on the Great Plateau, you've got beachfront property.
Wow.
They still got a whole ocean they can extend and add more islands or more continents or whatever, but Hyrule should be this Hyrule.
Okay.
All right. Hot take.
That is, but I actually kind of see where you're going with it, and I see ways in which that could be interesting. I think this time last month, this time exactly last month, because we're recording this exactly 1 month past the release of this game. So there you go. We've been living with this game for a month. It's great.
Yay.
I think this time last month, I would have been very skeptical about that opinion. And I think that the changes, the way in which this game surface area does feel different from Breath of the Wild, even through the similarities, has kind of made me a believer in the possibilities of making a place feel different, even if it does share a lot of similarities. So I see where you're coming from, Josh. I really do think that there is something potentially there. I don't know if it's going to happen. I personally am kind of feeling like the next mainline game should maybe go to a place other than Hyrule. I want to go to another plane of existence, or go check out another Termina or something.
I was about to say, let's see the Termina version of this map.
Right.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be cool. Okay, Cody, how about you? Same question. Sky, surface, or depths?
So, well, as mentioned, I've spent a lot of time in the depths. It's just a very, it's a very podcast game kind of area. which is to say that I can just put on a podcast or something, just be vibing down in the depths, exploring and finding the light roots and all of this kind of thing. And I've really been enjoying that. Though I will say that for the time that I do spend in the sky, I really enjoy. And I enjoy it more after spending more time in the depths, because I think the increase in energy cells and that sort of thing is what opens up the sky. Like in this late game, I've been hopping from Sky Island to Sky Island with little Zonite devices and stuff that I can, bring out of my inventory with rockets and, all sorts of things. And it's actually a lot of fun zooming around the sky. But I think that gets more fun when you're less likely to have your energy cell conk out halfway through and, fall to the ground. So I think the sky might be more of a late game kind of experience, I suspect, because I think it gets better when you have more stuff.
Yeah, I would say that my interaction with the sky is exactly like that, Cody. Like now that I've got 6-ish energy cells, I can actually kind of island hop now. I still am kind of annoyed by the longevity timer that some of the Zonite devices have, like the glider. It really only sticks around for the course of 3 or so batteries, and then it disappears. Same thing with hot air balloons; they disappear fairly quickly. So, trying to find other ways to maneuver around the sky islands has been an interesting challenge that is really not possible in the early game.
The hoverbike has entered the chat.
Hoverbike is great. I love the hoverbike. So I find it kind of interesting that most of the promotional material for this game was the sky and the surface. Obviously, no one even knew about the depths, but really the early portion of the game is all about the surface and the depths, so that you can explore the broader context of the sky, because you can access very few things in the sky from the start. And like even going up from Skyview towers, trying to paraglide to other places, that only gets you so far, and it's not very far in the sky. So it's kind of interesting how it's been flipped from what the promotional materials kind of made it out to be. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I think for me, it's so interesting, because if I had to single out one that I have overall less fun with than the other two, it would actually be the depths. And that makes it sound like I'm not enjoying it, which isn't the case. I love the depths. I think it's an amazing thing that's in this game. I think it was a spectacular addition, and the amount of explorable area that it adds is incredible. And just the complete change in atmosphere down there is incredible, right? It's a very different feeling. It's almost jarring when you compare exploring the depths to the way that you explore the surface and the sky islands, right? Where everything is based on line of sight, but in the depths, it's very, very different than that. And I think that is the distinction that makes me enjoy the depths just a little bit less, because there's something inherently stressful about being down there to me and kind of not knowing what landmarks and stuff you're heading for. I think that's just that comes from having spent so much time with Breath of the Wild, right? And just being so used to that method of exploration. But obviously I love the surface. The surface is fantastic. I don't have as much battery as any of y'all do, so I have not been able to explore the sky quite as comprehensively as I would like to. But I will say that, I mean, I'm the kind of person who really enjoys vibes games, games like Journey. And then like one of the reasons that I like Wind Waker so much, it's a vibes game. It's all about catching some feels and absorbing the atmosphere of the thing. Right. And for that reason, I freaking love the sky. I always feel so relaxed when I'm kind of trotting around sky islands. In Breath of the Wild, I think I said in our season covering that game for the podcast, one of my rituals was that I would turn in all my goddess orbs at the Temple of Time goddess statue, and anytime that I would like save and quit the game, most nights I would do it from there, and that was just kind of one of my rituals. And I'm actually doing something similar for the Temple of Time in the Sky in this game, because that just it's always such like a relaxing end to my play sessions, because I love the aesthetic of the sky. I love the feeling of it. It is very it's got just this beautiful ancient aesthetic, and like the soundtrack is even very distinct from everything that's happening on the surface and in the depths. It's very serene, lots of woodwinds, right? I just love it up there. So, I get the criticism that it is not as dense as it maybe could have been. And given how much of a marketing element it was in the lead up to the release of this game, that maybe set some unrealistic expectations for just how much time you're actually spending up there. All totally valid points, but just very subjectively on my end of things, I love the sky. It's a beautiful, relaxing place for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like based on the marketing materials, it almost felt like we expected the depths in the sky to be reversed. Like we all expected there to be some huge expansive areas in the sky to explore. And then we were like, yeah, and it seems like they've added some little caves down on the surface. And it was just the complete opposite of that.
And the funny part about that is they did just add some little caves on the surface, you got all of it. The answer to that question was yes, I'll take it all. Okay. Excellent. So let's see. I'm going to go into the Discord real quick. We've got a few fun questions that some people have put in. So let's see. Tiffany the Star asks, there was a ton of speculation about Tears of the Kingdom, whether it was mechanics and abilities, explorable areas, even playable characters. What were you most excited was true, and what speculation, even if it was really out there, do you wish had been true but wasn't? And I'll send this one to Cody first.
Well, so what comes to mind for me is the speculation that that I thought might have been true but wasn't. I guess maybe a spoiler warning for talking about Ganondorf, but I thought from my speculation was that maybe we would be getting a good Ganondorf, or a Ganondorf that would turn evil, but a Ganondorf that was like what's the deal with this, dehydrated Ganondorf? Like, is this something that's like there's a Ganondorf separate from Demise, if you know what I mean, who is going to maybe end up being infected by Demise or something like that? But like, is there a Ganondorf outside of the concept of Demise and Calamity? And that didn't end up being true. Ganondorf's just Ganondorf. He's the same villain he always was.
He's bad.
He's bad. But I've enjoyed the way that they've done Ganondorf. I've really some of his facial expressions and stuff have really cracked me up. So it's been a fun Ganondorf. But yeah, that was my pre-theory before coming into the game, was maybe they might be doing something interesting with Ganondorf in terms of morality and that kind of thing, but it didn't end up happening.
What about yourself, Josh?
So, analyzing lots of trailers, there was a lot of speculation about time travel, or like maybe you're playing two different Links in two different time periods, which is why the trailers mix together Link in the old little toga and Link in the champion tunic. I didn't really want that to be true, but Zelda has, back as far as Link to the Past, had the kind of two world thing going on. And after they did A Link to the Past, and like Ocarina of Time has a simplified version, and then Oracle of Ages tried it again, but they've kind of gone away from the you can shift between two worlds in two states kind of idea, and they've never fully done it in 3D, right? In A Link to the Past and Oracle of Ages, you can stand anywhere in the world and shift the time period or which world you're in. and in Ocarina of Time, you have to go back to the Temple of Time to reset the whole world. I would have loved for them to have had a light world, dark world, kind of like we got, but on the same plane, where you shift between a light and dark, or a past and present, future, whatever, where you've just got a gimmick that lets you load a different map in front of your face. That's what I had hoped, and I hope they still try it in the future. That seems like everyone's asking, where do they go from here? That seems like a cool idea.
Yeah, kind of like that alternate dimension Lyndon was saying. Yeah,
I can't wait to see what name they have to come up with for their 5th attempt at a Dark Realm after the Twilight Realm and Lorule.
I mean, this game showed they weren't totally scared to bring back old names and concepts and confuse everybody more by just calling it the same thing the lore already called it. So they could just call it the Dark World again, or Lorule again.
That's right.
And then we'll all just have a lot of questions.
Like, how many imprisoning wars have we had, for real? Like,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a really great segue into my next question. I'm going to open this one up to the table. So Matt, Josh, Cody, whoever wants to jump in here first.
Wait, do we not get to talk about our theories that we wish had happened?
Well, you know what, Matt? Just because you asked nicely, that wasn't even that nice. But yes, I'm going to allow you.
Well, I was hoping you would have one too. I think it's a great question.
I've got a lot of stuff to get into here, but you know what? Actually, sure. Why not?
I think it's a great question. I think we should talk about it from our perspectives as well.
Well, there you go, Matt. Go
Yeah,
nuts.
I mean, I think one thing for me was everybody knows my abiding love for Skyward Sword, and I was hoping for a little more direct connection between the skies that we were seeing and what happened in that game. Knowing that Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time, presumably, maybe not presumably anymore, are the only 2 games that exist across all of the timelines as established in Hyrule Historia. Those are big quotations.
Minish Cap too, Matt.
That's true, because Minish Cap does take place between Skyward Sword and I forgot about that. So yeah, so I think
Four Swords also.
Josh. Yes, Four Swords Adventure also takes place in between those 2 games.
A non-zero amount of games,
Four Swords.
Yeah, are universal.
Four Swords Adventures takes place after Twilight Princess.
Okay. Now that we're clear on those games as well, I was hoping for more direct connections between, Skyloft or just the sky in general, and what we're seeing from the floating sky islands. I think what we got instead with the, a lot of people were speculating about the Zonite from the very beginning just because of the writing that was around the Master Sword in the title. I'm really glad that we got Zonite, and I'm really, really happy with the direction that they've taken the Zonite and the lore that they've put in there, and really everything that has to do with the Zonite in this game I think is really phenomenal. The characters, the story, like all of it just flows really well, and I have really loved seeing that and how it ties in with the dragons and all this other stuff just really has been tied together masterfully, that I think is one of the strongest points of the game.
Yeah, and you could be forgiven for having assumed a little bit more of a connection to Skyward Sword, just given how many like Skyward Sword vibes were present, especially in those most recent trailers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You weren't crazy, Matt. It was
Thank
possible.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think the thing that was definitely capitalized on that I was seeing the most potential for in the trailers was meaningful changes to the world of Breath of the Wild, and which is good. I'm glad that panned out, because to me that was the make or break thing for this game. Yeah. This game was going to live or die based on how different this overworld felt to Breath of the Wild, even though it was sharing the same space. And as we've already mentioned, no problem there. It's great. It turned out totally fine. I very similar to you, Josh, I was kind of wishing for a little bit of time traversal here. And without getting too specific about it, the story does kind of touch on some back and forth between time shenanigans. Periods. Yeah, there are time shenanigans present, right? So, but not in the active way that we're kind of talking about. And I really would have appreciated to see a little bit of that. The other thing that I was really hoping was going to be a bit more present. So Matt, I agree with you. I think, I'm glad that the Zonite ended up being a going concern in this game. And I'm glad that they were such a large narrative part of it, because they are, Rauru is a very interesting character. The architecture of the Zonite and the ways in which it is aesthetically distinct from the Sheikah, right?
Very different.
Yeah. That's one of those things that, again, helps this game feel distinct in certain very specific ways from Breath of the Wild. And I really love that about it. I wish that the Zonite culture itself, at least the point in the game where I'm at right now, which is not very far. I've completed 2 dungeons and again played for 45 hours, right? So a lot of game left to go. But I do wish that the culture of the Zonite and the Zonite as like a race was being explored just a little bit more. It's something that has been, it's something that's been largely contained to the memories at this point. And, those, as awesome as they are kind of bite-sized compared to, for sure, the amount of time you're spending in the rest of the game. And then past that, it's more just the same thing that the Sheikah influence was doing in Breath of the Wild, which is just, here's all these things laying around the world that these seemingly awesome people created.
Right.
Yep. So
I totally understand that perspective, and to a point, I agree with it. I think my only counterpoint there would be that I think bringing the Zonite into the game, like as another race, even if it was in a minor way, I don't know that it would have worked with the story thread that is being told. Maybe it could have, because Nintendo is way smarter than me, but I'm struggling to see how that would, mesh together well.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those things where there's an element of armchair quarterbacking happening here, right? Which is that we have so much already, and so it feels greedy to be sitting here saying, I wish we also had this. You know?
Absolutely.
It's like, shame on me for being that way. But yeah, I mean, within the boundaries of the question, I think that's kind of where I land with it.
But that's also why we're here, Lyndon. The entire basis of this podcast is somewhat armchair quarterbacking.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to go kill this giant June bug.
That is the biggest June bug I've ever seen.
Yeah, that thing's nasty, and I don't want it flying on me while we're recording. So I'm going to go kill that real quick.
Have fun. Be a Terminator.
If I may add, I think it's hilarious how much you all do not like June bugs.
Dude, I can't stand them. Can't do it. Can't do it.
There are plenty of bugs I can't stand at all. But June bugs have always just been kind of like, yeah, whatever. They're just a little bit of a nuisance.
Okay, cool.
They just like, they oog me out. Like, I'm not afraid of them, but it's that phobic reaction of like, oh my God, get away from me. Like, I know that they don't actually do anything to me. They're just disgusting. Hey, Cody, Lyndon wants to know if the June bugs in Australia eat people. Because it seems like they would.
Hold on, let me look up what a June bug is.
I was about to say, they probably don't call them June bugs.
For sure they don't, but the
June bugs have lots of names.
Well, if you did have them, I'd like to imagine that they eat people, so we're just going to say yes.
They've evolved into something else.
Yeah, they're like a carnivorous insect that's the size of a small horse that like just preys on humans exclusively. Thank you.
All right, I won. The June bug has been defeated. And I'm just going to have to be living in a state of mystery about whether or not the June bugs in Australia are...
They don't have June bugs in Australia.
Lethal. Oh, do they have July bugs?
No, they have no such...
or since it's on a different hemisphere, do they have like...
Winter bugs?
February bugs?
It's a winter bug.
But it's like summer for them?
No, apparently they have... That genus of beetle does not exist in that part of the world, so...
Well, lucky y'all.
Right?
I mean, I feel like you got a win there, and I think you needed one, so...
Never mind all of the venomous and poisonous whatever.
Hey, this is one win. It's just one. They get one.
They probably tried to come to Australia and got wiped out by, spiders or something. So
probably true.
Americans probably bring them over in their luggage every day.
And then they just get eaten
and they
immediately.
just immediately die.
Yeah,
where anywhere else in the world they would be like an invasive species. In Australia,
Australia's like, absolutely not, motherfucker.
Immediately vanquished. Oh man. Okay. All right. Sorry. That's a fun little aside. Okay. Here's a fun question that I have. I'm going to open it up to the entire table. Whoever feels like they have a good answer, you go first. All right. The depths or the dark world? Which is better?
The Dark World.
Which Dark World?
The Dark World.
A Link to the Past.
Okay, cool.
So wait, so Josh says the Dark World, Cody says the depths.
I'm going with the depths. I really like the depths.
I'm going to say the Dark World. We have an even 50-50 split. So Cody, I'm going to actually give you a second to defend your position here. What do you think? Where's your head at with this?
What I really like about the depths is how it synchronizes with the surface world. There's, the fact that this is. Some people might not realize this, but it's not a spoiler. It's something Robbie tells you, like, as soon as you do the tutorial. But, like, each light route corresponds to a shrine. And each geographic landmark on the surface corresponds to an equal but opposite geographic landmark in the depths. For example, if you have a mountainous area on the surface, you'll get a lot of chasms in the depths that correspond with it. So you can actually pull up, if you're in the depths and you can't see where you're going, you can actually pull up the surface map and be like, all right, I know where the ups and downs are. I know where the lakes are, which will correspond with, bodies of water and stuff will correspond with impassable mountains. And you can actually use the two sort of realms at the same time to make your way around the surface if you've got the depths explored, or vice versa. And I think it's a really cool system.
How about you, Josh?
So my instant answer is very nostalgia fueled.
Sure, why not?
But the Dark World, it actually corresponds in a similar way to Cody is describing, right? I didn't know that. I did not know that every landmark and terrain in the depths corresponded to the surface. That's a little new to me, to know that mountains in the surface equals ditches in the depths. I didn't know that. I knew that bodies of water became impassable mountains in the depths. Excuse me. But no, otherwise it's just I think the depths actually has a little bit of this with the shrine issue, but the Dark World, it feels more like it has tangible puzzle solving where you go between the two instantly to figure things out. So the places in the Dark World directly correspond to places in the Light World, more so than the depths do. But I am completely, absolutely biased toward A Link to the Past in all things.
Yeah, and so it's very interesting because the reason that I kind of had in the back of my mind was very similar. I think the depths would be over the top for me. I think that they would beat the Dark World as a concept if there was a way to immediately traverse between the depths and the surface and to come out in the corresponding place on the surface. Like that's still to me one of the things that is a little not irritating, but it bugs me just a little bit about the depths is that the only way to easily get out of there is to fast travel to a shrine or location on the surface, right?
Or find one of those few areas where you can just use Ascend.
And I haven't found one of those yet.
I have found 3. And I've explored...
Oh, actually, I found exactly 3.
I think I've explored maybe 30% of the depths, and I found 3.
I take that back. I found 1 through the course of...
Yeah. It's by Tree Pope.
Yeah, sure. So, anyway, so, okay, yeah, so that is possible. But I guess what I would say is that I wish that there were more of those, right? Because one thing I keep coming back to is, we talked in one of our earlier Tears of the Kingdom episodes about the ways in which somebody could choose to play this game, say like Sans Paraglider, for instance, right? Or just different ways that people could choose to like deny themselves access to travel mechanics in this game. And one of the biggest ways people did that in Breath of the Wild was by saying like, okay, I'm introducing an artificial layer of difficulty into my playthrough of this game, and I'm saying I'm not doing fast travel, right? Like Max, I think, had said that he had done that for one of his more recent playthroughs.
Yes.
So, and I can see the appeal in that. I can see where that would be fun, and I just wish that the depths as a concept had a bit more of a way for somebody to play into that than it does.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. And accessibility out of the depths is definitely my biggest issue with it. I was about to say second, but no, I think that's my biggest issue with the depths.
Yeah. So
yeah, like that goes back to where I mentioned before, like wanting a light world, like wanting a time travel thing to just switch between. Like, and that's what the depths just isn't quite. And that's what I would love to see them try next.
Yeah. But you know what the depths is a surprisingly varied selection of experiences. I mean, it's definitely not monotonous. There's a lot of stuff to get up to down there, and I do think that that's impressive. So once again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm, kind of crapping all over the concept, because I do think it's incredible and it's super well executed. I just like one or two little things maybe could have been done a little bit better, but overall, really, really great. Speaking of other frequent guest of this show, Max Nichols, who we had on 2 weeks ago, there was a bit of a dust up on Twitter that took place yesterday. There was an event that took place on social media. So those are always great, right? Level heads and all that.
Social media is nothing but a positive experience for everyone. Lyndon, what are you talking about?
Right. So frequent guest on the show, Max Nichols, my colleague at Bungie, has been...
You have to throw that in there every time, don't you?
I do. I'm proud of it, and I'll keep mentioning it.
You're insufferable.
Yeah. So he's been documenting a lot of his moment-to-moment thoughts about Tears of the Kingdom as he goes through the game. And one of the ones that he dropped on Twitter yesterday, actually 2 days ago, goes like this. Max says, "It pains me to say, but I think Tears of the Kingdom is ... too long and too big."
And then he just said too big.
No, he said too long. I'm reading it.
Cool.
Screen.
Okay.
Too long and too big. And then he kind of further clarified his point after people predictably, kind of gave him a lot for it, which is unfortunate. But, he said, not intending to debate this, but basically his kind of thesis here is that he feels like one of the fundamental qualities of a good game experience is to provide closure at the right time. This means ending while the experience is still good before fatigue or burnout occurs. In this game, the player has a lot of control over when they finish it, if you define finish as when the credits roll. But this isn't sufficient in Max's opinion for two reasons. One, ideally a game ends before burnout begins, and not all players are going to be able to see the signs of it coming. Two, beating a final boss is not satisfying closure alone. Players also need to feel satisfied with other parts of the experience. So he goes into more detail after that. I'm not going to read all of it right here. If you are on Twitter, at Max Nichols, that's his handle. Go check it out. It's a great thread. I think it definitely is the kind of thing that sort of gets you thinking about the structure of this game. And I reached out to Max before the recording of this episode and asked for his permission to talk about this because he, as people do on social media, he received, some unkind responses and some people who were very quick to try and create like camps and polarizing conversation around this whole thing, which is unfortunate. But he says, go for it. Feel free to talk about it. Just make sure everybody knows I consider this my subjective opinion and not an objective truth about Tears of the Kingdom. So there you go. That caveat has now been stated. What I want to talk about, we'll start with Cody first. Do you agree or disagree with Max? And do you feel that his viewpoint has validity? I mean, do you see elements of kind of like resonance in what he's saying?
Even if you disagree, you can still think it has some validity. I just want everybody listening to know that.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Max. No. Terrible opinions. Just why is this guy here? Go back to Destiny 2.
Thank you, Cody. All right, Josh.
And we're moving on.
Yeah.
No, it's. I think it's entirely valid. Like, all personal experiences are valid. People. There are people who play Majora's Mask and they say this game is too stressful. There's a timer. I hate it, and then they just can't continue the game. And I think that's, it's unfortunate for them, but I'm not going to argue with them because it's like that is the experience that they had, And I think Max is starting to feel some burnout.
Whereas you've got Matt and I who would like roll Majora's Mask up into a doobie and smoke it if we could.
I'm pretty sure I've done that once or twice.
It's, and I think that's something that does happen. Like I've had this experience with games before. Like, I think it's not something unique to Tears of the Kingdom. I think it is something about this genre of open world game that leads to a lot of people spending a lot of time playing something but not necessarily finishing it. But I guess I would question whether they should be held to the same standards. Like, in a linear game, if you don't complete it, like if you got halfway through Skyward Sword and you didn't complete it, you might go, all right, so there was an issue here. There were some dull parts and they needed to be finished before you could get to the good parts again. And so the ending was inaccessible to them. And that's a problem. Whereas if I played Skyrim for 100 hours and I became the head of the Thieves Guild and the head of the Assassins Guild and whatever else and, built my own house and everything, and then I never got around to the main story and I just dropped off at some point, I don't know that I would consider that to be a failure of a gameplay experience. Like, I don't think the game developers had failed to bring me to the ending so much as just I picked the parts of the story that I liked and ran with it. And then when I was done, I, just stopped playing. So I would, I guess, maybe contest whether it should be treated, this kind of game should be treated the same as a linear game when it comes to, is completion of the game actually, the most important thing about it?
It's so fascinating. And before I hand it over to Josh to give us his opinion, I just want to say that there's something that really resonates in that point with me because I know a lot of Bethesda games fans in my life. I mean, my co-host and brother Matt, and then
tis me,
also my two best friends from college, were all huge Oblivion and then Skyrim fans. And I would say that just that small sampling of people who play that kind of game, for them, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, I don't want to kind of put words in your mouth here, but
sure.
To me, it feels like the ending, like actually beating that game and rolling credits on it was maybe like 5% of the consideration of like actually playing that game, right? I mean, it always seemed to me like it was more about, I'm going to create a new character spec'd in new ways, and I'm going to live
in this world. Yeah. Role playing as that character.
Yes, I'm going to exist in the world of Skyrim, playing this specific different way from the last time I did it, and it was much more about that than it was about like I'm going to go beat the final boss and roll credits, right?
Sure. So for me, I would say that does not hold true, but I would also say that I am an anomaly in the group of people that play Skyrim, and I am an anomaly in the way that I value story above almost anything else in a game. And so story drives me. And luckily for me, I didn't play Skyrim until long after it had been out for a long time. So I went into Skyrim knowing exactly what I was getting into. So I spent 120 hours doing... Like I got everything. I got like 3/4 of the way through the story to where I had unlocked kind of like everything that needed to be unlocked, and I was at like kind of some critical points in the story, and then just decided to live in that moment of the story and just explore the world entirely. So, but every time I have played Skyrim, that I've put more than 10 hours into it, because recently I've tried to get back into Skyrim and just couldn't after having put over 400 hours into it, I was just like, I don't really want to do this anymore. But anyway, every other time that I played Skyrim, I always complete the story, just because I feel driven to do that. And for me, once I finish the story of a game, I don't feel much like living in that world past that point. And that is true for The Witcher 3, Mass Effect, like all of those games is once I finish the story, that's the game. That is putting a bow on the game, and my time with it, at least with this character or playthrough, is Dunsky.
I want you to take that thought, wrap it up, put a little bow on it.
Yes.
Keep it in your brain, and please don't forget it.
I won't.
I want you to let it off the chain here in just a few minutes, because I have something I want to say about that.
Sure. No, my whole response about Max's Twitter thread is in regards to that mindset that I very specifically have.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Josh, how about you?
So I don't play very many open world games. It's totally possible that if I was into Skyrim or Assassin's Creed or any of the other multitude of these
Horizon, like whatever,
that I would get more bored of playing open world games more quickly. But I can probably tally them on one hand, with two of them being Zelda. I played Elden Ring, which I just played until one day I just didn't. and like the only other one I can think of right off is you could maybe call the Spider-Man game on PS4 semi-open world. It's open world New York. but like, so I don't have these experiences very often, so it's hard for me to say there's too much of it. But for me, like Zelda does, I don't think this is unique to Tears of the Kingdom. I feel like Breath of the Wild is the same way. Like, yes, there's more game, but it doesn't feel like it's that much more game in the grand scheme of things. It would not surprise me if Skyrim was bigger than both of them. So I don't know, like Cody said, like totally valid opinion here, right? Of that just beating the final boss is not enough to say you finished it. Sorry, it's a little hard to articulate this. But I feel like for most people, it's just not going to feel like too much game. I believe there are statistics on this, right? Even in linear games, most people don't finish video games.
Yeah.
You play them until you just don't. Like for most of my life, I did not finish most games that didn't have Zelda in the title. When I got my Switch, I said, I'm going to beat every game I buy for it. And I did for like the first four years or so before I was like, okay, I've had enough of forcing myself to finish games I'm not really enjoying. And so even like the games I would cite as some of my favorite games of all time were like games I had never finished. But I just still really, really enjoyed what I got out of them. So I get that feeling that just beating the story is not enough. But I feel like with a game like this, even if you're like Matt and you just want to focus on the story, most people are never going to see most of this game. Like, you might actually just spend 100 hours building stuff and do nothing else. Or you'll say the story is what matters to me. I'll focus on the story, and you'll just see which shrines and which Koroks and whatever you find along the way. And we're in such a Zelda-centric mode, and we're also terrified of having the slightest thing spoiled for us that we rush through it and burn ourselves out on it just to see it all immediately. And most people just aren't going to do that because to them it doesn't really matter that much.
Right.
To find out that there's a fire temple, you know?
Yeah.
That doesn't, for most people, that's not a significant spoiler of any kind. And so there's just kind of a disconnect there. Like I'm going to 100% this game. Like I did all the Koroks before, I'll do them again. But I'm not going to do it immediately. Like I will absolutely take a break and I'll just be playing this game for years on and off. And I think that's really cool that you can do that. And when I replay it, I won't ever do all of it again. I didn't with Breath of the Wild. I've finished Breath of the Wild probably 6 or 7 times now. But every time I just go a different way, see what I find, and maybe I only do 50 shrines, and it's 50 different shrines, that I've done every time I play the game. And I think that what they did is they put together a really great game that just said you can go whichever direction you want, and you will find something cool that will give you a satisfying experience. And I think they did basically as good a job as you can do at that.
Yeah. So I want to jump in here real quick, and I want to get back to what Matt was talking about just a minute ago, which is, Matt, could you summarize your thought process again real quick here?
So story being the beginning, middle, and end point of a game, and everything else is the dressing. So story is the turkey of the Thanksgiving dinner, and everything else is the stuffing, the mashed potatoes, the yams, whatever you want to call it, right?
And this is for you.
For sure. Yeah.
And also in a lot of ways for me.
Yeah. And so like some people will go to Thanksgiving and say, well, the stuffing is the best part of the meal. Good for you. For me, the turkey is the best part of the meal, and that's what I am there for.
The stuffing in this instance is building mechs with Zonite devices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And putting large dicks on everything. Like, you look, you do you. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm just saying that's not what I'm here for. I like those things. Like, I like all of these things. There are almost no bad things at Thanksgiving dinner except for most people's version of green bean casserole, which is horrible because it has like tartar sauce or something and it's disgusting. Anyway, outside of that, like, so when I look at a game, any game, even RPGs and open world games, and I am a huge aficionado of RPGs and open world games, the story is the thing, the main story, the main quest. And that is what I approach every game for. And for me, when I finish the main story, that game is finished, and my playthrough of that game is finished, unless there is like Mass Effect 2 and Witcher 3 have DLCs that come after the main story. Like, sure, those are like one-off scenarios that are different, but for the most part, like, you finish the story, you finish the game, we move on, go do another game, maybe start another playthrough if I'm like super obsessed. But yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, Josh also brought up an excellent point, which is that the way that a lot of people are interacting with this game is, coming from a fear of story spoilers, right? Because
which is where I'm at now.
Sure, exactly. And me as well. And so kind of playing this game in a way that you would not necessarily do so if you knew the whole story up front, right?
Absolutely.
So when I read Max's thread, I was seeing a lot of truth in my own gameplay experience in it. I think maybe for different reasons. I would like to have an actual conversation with Max about this, where we really kind of break down like what specific things, because, he talks a lot about like, I'm at this point in the game, I still have so much left to do, and I'm hitting burnout and feeling overwhelmed by the amount of activities, right? And I would like to hear more specifically about what things are causing that feeling. But when I read that, for me, I was kind of taking stock of what in this game is causing similar feelings for me. And what it all really comes back to is what we're talking about right now, that push and pull of at what point do you call the game complete? How important is it for you to play the game in a certain specific way? And how important is it for you to make the credits roll being the end point of that experience, right? Because in Breath of the Wild, I talked about this a few episodes ago, even in my very first playthrough, I was able to do it to where, I didn't care about Korok seeds. Side quests weren't a major thing in Breath of the Wild. There was the cast quest, which I definitely did.
Always do.
Sure. But for me in Breath of the Wild, it was, okay, I want all the towers, all the divine beasts, all the shrines, and I have some armor pieces and whatever that I care about. I want to upgrade some stuff. And then once all that's done, I'm going to go beat Calamity Ganon, and I'm comfortable calling the game finished.
Yes. Yep.
Right. With Tears of the Kingdom, I'm running into this, I'm going to say issue. And I want to,
you just don't have a better word for it.
I don't have a better word for it because I'm still having a 10 out of 10 experience with this game. I'm enjoying myself to the nth degree. It's transcendent. It's incredible. I'm having this push and pull in my own gameplay experience where I'm getting stressed out by the allure on one hand of just the sheer number of things that there are to do, and on the other hand, knowing that at some point sooner rather than later, if I don't go do story stuff, I'm going to learn what's happening in the story and I'm going to get it spoiled for me. And the X factor, the thing on top of all of that is that I am one of those people, very similar to what Matt is saying, where to me, I would, and this is, I don't know why I am this way, but I like a completion of a narrative, right? And so for me, when I go and I beat whoever the final boss is of this game and I roll credits on Tears of the Kingdom, to me, it would feel weird then loading back into the game to go grind some more shrines or do some more side quests.
Exactly.
Right. And so, and that's like such a, I don't think most people who play games are that way. It's certainly not all people who play games are that way. So, and I think that's one of the great things about this game is that it appeals to such a wide variety of gamers, right? People are looking for a lot of different things in video games, and I think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom both were spectacular in that they offered so many different ways to interact with those games, and so it just appeals to tons of different kinds of people simultaneously. What I'm trying to figure out right now is how am I going to treat my first ever playthrough of this game? Because on the one hand, I've got, well, you only play the first game. You only play this game the first time once, right?
For sure.
But then on the other hand, I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm sort of thinking, am I going to have more fun with Tears of the Kingdom if I treat my first playthrough as more of a perfunctory experience and get all of that knowledge, and then at some later point I come back through and I do just like approach it from a completionist standpoint over a period of multiple years, right? And then on top of that, you have the consideration that you and I are going to be playing this game for the purposes of content creation at some point in the not too distant future, right? So there's a little bit of extra pressure there because it's like, well, whenever we do that, we're going to have to come up with a format. And once again, I'm going to have to like constrain myself in some ways.
Right.
Right. And then on top of that thing, so it's a hat on top of a hat on top of a hat, right? On top of all of those things together, we have the fairly safe assumption that we're going to be getting story DLC for this game at some point in the future, right?
Absolutely.
And, once Champions Ballad and all of that was done for Breath of the Wild, like I'm existing in a point with Breath of the Wild now where I consider all of those things to be an integral part of the complete experience. When I play Breath of the Wild now, I do the main stuff and then I do the Champions Ballad stuff. And only after all of those things are done do I go fight Calamity Ganon, right?
Yeah.
So all of that is to say, I am trying to figure out what my strategy is for Tears of the Kingdom. I'm trying to figure out what's working best for me here. What is the best way for me to enjoy it in this like singular moment where I'm playing it for the first time, but also where I'm not just like, getting FOMO about things that happen later in the game. And that is a very long-winded kind of rabbit trail that brings me back to seeing truth in what Max is talking about in his Twitter thread about the magnitude of this game in some ways feeling a little overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I also am not a person who plays a lot of open world games, right? So you have to add that into the discussion. Like I'm very similar to Josh where I can't think of too many games of this type that I've ever played and completed. I actually can't think of a single one off the top of my head.
Breath of the Wild.
Well, sure, but yeah, yes. But I mean, Assassin's Creed,
Mass Effect 1.
Can you really can you quantify it?
It's too linear. You're right. It's much more linear. Yeah.
Like I've just Assassin's Creed, Odyssey, Origins, Horizon, maybe
Witcher.
I mean,
you never beat The Witcher.
Again, the only other thing I can think of is like Arkham City, right? But even that's like a game of a totally different decade. So yes, even though it is open world, it doesn't have the magnitude that we're talking about here.
Arkham Knight was a little closer.
Yeah, but I didn't beat that one. Yeah. So
no, yeah, I mean, this isn't your style of game for sure. So I think even for me, and I think mostly for me, it comes down to I am, like Cody said, I am mainlining this game straight into my veins, playing playing 80 hours in a month. I don't know that I've ever put 80 hours in a single game in a month since I graduated college. Like I don't have time for that anymore. And here I am just absolutely trucking through this game as fast as I possibly can, because the very last thing I want is to be scrolling on Twitter trying to get engagement for the podcast, which is part of being a podcast, is you have to be on social media. So like, we don't get to avoid social media like everybody else. Like, so, and being terrified of exactly what happened to me, which is something getting spoiled. And luckily for me, it was just kind of something that was mid-tier that I was like, damn, I'm really sad that got spoiled for me, but it didn't like kill the whole game. And so I think that is really the biggest consideration. And that is just an unfortunate truth of kind of the era of gaming that we live in, where so much is publicized by the populace at large, by people who can just, put 200 hours into the game in the first month and 100% complete it, like many of the streamers that have. And, that's just kind of is what it is.
And
so
the other thing on top of this, and you and I are devouring pod time right now, and we're going to get back to our guests here pretty soon. They're being very patient.
They are. They're wonderful guests. That's why we like them.
Thanks, y'all. We appreciate you. Another thing on top of this is that I'm just in a very different life circumstance than I was when Breath of the Wild came out.
For
right?
sure.
Like, I have offspring.
You have child now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, like, I have a 2-year-old. So, and a job that actually, like, I spend an appropriate amount of time day to day on because I like it, you know? So, I mean, a lot of things that are slightly different for me here, but I don't know. I'm going to figure all this out. But what I will say is that, like, I guess to put a button in this conversation, I see where Max is coming from, and I think he's onto something. I do not feel burnt out by Tears of the Kingdom. And I have a hard time imagining myself feeling burnt out by Tears of the Kingdom. But I do see how that could happen if you, like, for a specific kind of gamer, especially for somebody who the Zelda series is a big part of their gaming life, right?
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild was a mold breaker for the Zelda series, and Tears of the Kingdom amps that up by orders of magnitude, right?
Sure.
So I can see it. I definitely can see it. I would encourage you all to go check out @MaxNichols on Twitter and read this entire thread because it's fascinating. And then also, if you do feel led to comment on that thread, please don't be an ass.
Yeah, seriously.
So I have a small word of advice for you, because I've been wrestling with the same exact kind of story problem that you're going through. Because I'm done, right? I can go to the end at any time. And I did the same thing in Breath of the Wild that you did, and I was like, I got to do all the shrines. I got to have it done, minus the Koroks, and I'll do that later. And I did that. I have mostly settled on not doing that this time, because at 150 hours, it seems like maybe I'm going to want to take a break soon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Maybe spend some of my time playing a different game.
How dare you?
And,
the audacity. Yeah.
There is a Phantom Hourglass season coming.
I was about to say, we're about to have to split our time with Phantom Hourglass starting a week-ish from today.
So, like, early on, I also wrestled with, well, how am I going to do this story, right? And I kind of just settled on, I'm going to do one dungeon a week. On the weekend, I'll just, where it doesn't matter where I was exploring before, I'll just say, okay, it's time to go to Zora's Domain, And that's what I stuck to, that one a week. But now I'm at a point where there's no more to do. And it's like, well, when do I go to Ganon? And I'm still kind of trying to decide exactly when that is. But I kind of thought, well, I'll give myself a couple weeks or something to see how much more loose end I finish up. But for me, it was just kind of key to just kind of sit down and say, this is the structure, and I'm just going to try and adhere to it. To give myself enough time to do the exploration and the building stupid constructs that I want, while also kind of proceeding at a reasonable pace. Finishing a big new open world game in 2 months after release, that seems reasonable,
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I do appreciate that. And I think basically where I'm at right now is this is all a mental exercise where I'm having to train myself to not approach this the way that I was doing with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, same. Absolutely same.
And that is difficult. That is really difficult. But I think in the long run, it's really going to help me out. And I am very excited for future playthroughs of this game where, one, we've got DLC under the belt, right? But also where I know the story and I'm just not worried about that.
Yeah.
And I can just I think it's the inverse of Breath of the Wild, right? Where Breath of the Wild, for me, I always look back on it and I think you'll never have your first time again, with Breath of the Wild. With Tears of the Kingdom, I think it's going to be the opposite, where I'm just like, all right, you got your first time done. You know everything. Now the real experience begins. Right.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'm definitely not going to be going for all the light routes and all the shrines and all the really those two things are probably the only two things I'd ever 100%. I will never ever do the Koroks ever. But, I'm probably at a point now where I might do the majority of shrines and however many light routes I get to, and then go through the story. And then after that, see how I feel about it.
So this is obviously a really big topic, and Cody, we haven't checked in with you in just a minute. So before we move on, I want to give you the floor to offer anything else that you want to say about this before we start talking about something else.
Look, I mean, everyone's going to play the game in their own way, and I think that's part of the joy of it all, is that someone who did just consider 30 shrines and finish the game or whatever to be complete would have 12 different playthroughs in which they'd be able to do 12 different playthroughs where they had different experience each time. And I think that's really cool. And I think it's a good sign for the longevity of the game. But I think in terms of because I'm feeling it too in terms of coverage. Like, as Zelda Universe, we would have preferred to have like a 20-hour game that had concrete dungeons and things that we were just like, great, we're done. Where here's the guide, here's all the stuff. Whereas what we've got is probably years of work ahead of us. But I think from the perspective of long-term interest in this game, I think Skyrim is possibly a good reference point for that, because that's a game where every year it gets a new re-release. It's, it's famous for it. That's the meme, is that, Skyrim's on smartphones now or whatever this year, because they just keep re-releasing it.
You can play it on your refrigerator.
Play it on your smart refrigerator. And the reason for that is because there's always just a new area that you just didn't really put that much time into before or whatever that you can check out this time. And I think in the long term, we'll be seeing a lot of stuff from Tears of the Kingdom in a way that that will make it relevant for a very long time to come.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think that that's going to be true. I think that if people are still discovering new ways to play Breath of the Wild 7 years on, then I feel like Tears of the Kingdom's probably got 14 years in it. I mean, it's incredible. And I think that is probably going to be the story of the game more than anything else. All right, let's talk about something a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more bite-sized topic here. Josh, I'm going to send this to you first. What are you finding yourself creating the most out of Zonite pieces, Zonite devices?
I am a creative person, but while playing this game, I have not been the most creative. So far, I have been pretty practical in what I make. So a lot of times it is just finding a way to fly. Just a little flying machine of some kind. I made one out of tumbleweeds once. Tumbleweeds and some fans. Or just making some little car, right? Just trying to traverse, and I alluded to not being efficient, right? Making a flying machine out of tumbleweeds is not efficient. Flying from Hateno Village to Kakariko Village for half an hour and using recall to send the flying machine back up into the sky when you run out of battery is not nearly as efficient as just fast traveling to Kakariko Village.
Sure.
But so, yeah, I'm just messing around with cars and planes just to get from A to B for no good reason.
How about you, Cody? When you're fusing things together and making contraptions out of Zonite devices, what does that normally end up being for you?
So I guess there's you've got your standard devices, and then you've got your for-purpose devices, and my just sort of standard all-purpose one is what they call the Goblin Glider, like the Goblin Glider from Spider-Man, which is basically just the controller device and then two fans that are pointed downwards, and you can just fly around on that. There's another one that's the hover bike that that's sort of equivalent, but like that's when there's only a few resources, or I want to just put in my own resources and I just need to get somewhere quickly. That's what my go-to. But I have created some really fun stuff. One of my most memorable experiences with this game so far was a sort of failed attempt to escort a rock. There's a type of shrine quest where you need to bring the big green rock back to the shrine so that the shrine will unlock. And I was trying to transport one, and it started as a flying device, and then it fell into the ocean.
And so then it was like a floating device. Yeah.
And then I was like pulling stuff out of my inventory, like, Doraemon or whatever, being like, all right, what can I do to turn this plane into a boat? And then it ended up being like, all right, well, the rock has fallen down to the bottom, so I'm going to be doing some reverse time to pull it back out of the ocean, and then I grab it, and then I put it onto this piece of driftwood, and then I jump on somewhere else, because because you can't do anything when you're just swimming. So you need to so if your craft sinks, it's like, how am I going to get to my other craft that has a rock on it that I need to get out of the ocean? And it just became a huge series of hijinks that eventually led to me successfully transporting it after turning the one device into about 4 devices. And that's just a really fun time.
I mean, that's the Tears of the Kingdom experience distilled into one story, right? Is like the intended way to do things and then the way things actually happen, the push and pull between those. But that's one of the reasons that it's so great, right? I mean, I would say that I'm about 50-50 on those, between shrine puzzles, between, Korok solutions with, I need to reach my friend, those sorts of things, I would say about 50% of the time. Addison, sign guy,
I love Addison. He's one of my favorite parts of this game.
Addison is my favorite character.
That doesn't surprise me, Mr. Sign company employee.
I was just saying. Yes. I am a sign guy, so I love Addison.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to welcome onto the podcast Josh the Sign Guy, a.k.a. How's he standing?
Yeah. He's really bad at his job, let's be honest. Addison, not Josh. Addison, not Josh. Yeah.
That's hysterical. No, but I mean, I would say I'm bad. Between all of those things, I'm about 50% doing it the way that it seems like I was supposed to, and 50% doing it just the jankiest absolute way possible. And I like that. I feel like that's a pretty good balance of things. And again, we always have to come back to the fact that it's I think when you were talking about the intended way to do things in this game, I think the intended way literally is just get it done, right? And I have to kind of remind myself of that every now and again, because there is this dopamine rush that is accompanied with you figuring out the quote unquote right way, right? At least I found that to be the case, right? When I it's a holdover from Portal type video games,
sure,
right? Where once you figure out the solution, or even older 3D Zelda games, any older Zelda game, right? You figure out the singular puzzle. Once you get the solution after having tried it for a few minutes, you feel great about yourself because you figured out the way to do it. And I am finding that those moments are still here in Tears of the Kingdom. And even though it's only 50% of the time for me, I'm trying to figure out if one is more satisfying than the other.
Yeah, I don't know. There are very few instances where I've done something and said that was the right way to do it. And I think that's a good thing, honestly. There are some shrines that are like, there's pretty much one way to do it, the most efficient way. But most of them are like, how can I cobble together the world's longest bridge to get from one side to the other? And that's also pretty rewarding in its own way.
All right, got a few rapid fire questions for the table here. We're going to go, so for the next few questions, we're going to go in order: Cody, Josh, Matt, myself. Sound good?
Yes.
All right. Rapid fire question number 1. Champions or sages? Champions. Cody.
Champions.
Josh.
Sages.
Matt.
Champion abilities, sages as characters.
No. You're getting ahead of me.
Champions.
I'm going to go champions. And so let's have 5 minutes for conversation here. I think that's tough for me to say because the sages are actually really cool seeming characters. I wish that we got names and a little bit more going on.
Wait, are you talking about current generation sages or past generation sages?
Okay,
very different.
Fair enough.
I was talking current generation.
My answer is still the same. Actually, my answer is still the same. I think that when we're talking about the personalities of the characters, I think that the champions overall are a little bit more fleshed out. And I'm actually even completely separating what we learn about these people, the things we see them do in Age of Calamity, right?
I didn't even play that game, so yes.
I think that what you see from them in Breath of the Wild and Champions Ballad is more than enough. Like, Age of Calamity doesn't really add anything new there. I do think that the roster of champions was a more fun crew of characters overall. The sages are fun. They're great. Some of them are standouts. I mean, I love Tulin. Tulin's great.
And Riju is awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, Riju
is just Urbosa but tinier.
I'm not.
These characters are both the champions and the sages.
Well, no. When I say champions, I'm talking Urbosa, Daruk, Rivali.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I'm not talking like new generation of whatever. So for instance, like Yunobo, I'm no Yunobo stan, right? Like
he's kind of
fun character, I guess. But no, I think that Urbosa, Daruk, Rivali, and Mifa are a better crew of auxiliary main characters than Tulin, Yunobo, Riju, and Sidon, right? And that's tough because Sidon's great.
Sidon's awesome. Also,
and
look,
so is Riju.
No, Riju's great. Look, so yes, agree all the way around. I think that the champions as characters fleshed out in the memories, which this is something that I think benefited the champions a lot, was they were fleshed out a lot in the memories that you uncover in Breath of the Wild. You get a lot of their character and personality. I think it's beneficial that the sages that we get in this game are fleshed out actually in the game itself. But for some reason, I feel like I have less of a relationship with them in the game. Not like Link has a more of a relationship with the sages, but in the game, I feel like there's less of a relationship there than there was with the champions in general. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base there, but that's how I feel. Yeah.
Weirdly enough, even though I like the memories more in Tears of the Kingdom than Breath of the Wild, I think that the memories in Breath of the Wild where Zelda is interacting with the champions,
which they were great,
kind of add a little bit more that kind of help put that over the top for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to get at. Thank you for putting it in better words.
So, okay. Well, here's part 2 of this question. Champion abilities or sage abilities? Cody.
Champion abilities.
Josh?
I'll say champion abilities and elaborate more in a minute.
Yep. I also say champion abilities. And Lyndon, I assume you say the same. He's nodding his head. Yes. So all of us say champion abilities. Josh, you said you wanted to elaborate. Please do so.
Yeah, like I also didn't say a minute ago, like I like just, again, I'm so nostalgia fueled, right? I like the concept of sages as a core Zelda thing that has just been missing for years.
Agree totally, completely, yes.
So that's like, to me, just the fact that they are called sages instantly makes them better. But the champion abilities are completely overpowered. Like
they really are.
Absolutely,
they're insanely powerful,
ridiculously overpowered, and that's why they're better, right? The sage abilities, and like, granted, I don't think neither of you even know all of them necessarily.
Correct.
Like they're all very nice to have things. Like they're all good, but they are not instant full heal, 30-foot vertical leap,
unbreakable shield.
Don't take any damage 3 times in a row, and also reflect lasers and kill everything in 100-yard radius.
Yeah.
Right?
They're
not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also they're not. You did the DLC and now they recharge like instantly, so that you have a full heal every 5 seconds. Yeah. Like it's just not that, and that's why they're better, is because they're crazy. And maybe they do DLC again and they make the sage abilities super crazy.
Well,
but they feel more like normal video game abilities that you should have instead of crazy things.
I think for me what Josh said, like in terms of which ones are better, like which ones I'd prefer to have in a fight, I think the champion abilities are just extremely strong. But the sage stuff, there are parts of it that I like better as just regular day-to-day, like, this will help me, break some rocks or whatever, kind of stuff. And so I appreciate it on that level. I guess going back to the last one, for sages, for me, I think the cutscenes in Breath of the Wild were about the champions, about fleshing out the champions to some extent, whereas the main characters of the cutscenes in this one are not the sages. The only real cutscenes you get with sages in this game are sort of copy pasted, like once you've done one dungeon, you've done all the dungeons in terms of
the cutscene that you're getting. It's always the same, just different sage. Yeah,
but with a different sage, but it's telling the same story. But you're not getting like, here's the back, here's a fun cutscene about Tulin growing up or something, which is what you sort of get with a lot of the, like, here's Urbosa and Zelda have a, Urbosa's like an older sister to Zelda kind of, you sort of get that relationship dynamic stuff there, and that's not focused on this. The sages are not the focus of cutscenes in this game, and so you don't get much with them.
Yeah, I think for me it boils down to the activation mechanic for the sages is clumsy. Like I just unlocked Riju a couple of days ago, and I think her ability is almost as good as Urbosa's Fury, but activating it is such a pain. Like you have to track down the avatar, hit A on them, activate the ability, activate the option to use the ability, aim the ability, and then use it. And it's like a 3 or 4 step process that I don't think works very well. And I would almost, for the sake of the fact, acknowledging that the champion abilities were broken, I would rather have the sage abilities in both games just activated the same way as they were in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And like that's harder to do with Yunobu specifically. I don't think it's impossible to do with Tulin or with Riju, and I don't have Sidon yet, but I think that is I think they took a big step backward in the activation of abilities in this game.
Yeah. And so granted, yes, we don't have all of them. I have been led to believe that of the Sage abilities, Tulin's is the most useful, and I still find it less useful than Rivali's Gale. So.
Well, for sure. But now you have a hot air balloon.
Because you can build all this stuff to get in the air. It's to help you get more distance rather than height. You already have the height.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wouldn't call it the most useful on a it's mostly useless in a fight, for example, but it's just one that's a nice little addition if you're paragliding across the world. You sort of get a bit of extra distance and that sort of thing, and that's nice. But yeah, I went to the Gerudo. I did the Gerudo dungeon first, because I ignore all plot prompts. Except for I had been informed that I wouldn't get the glider if I didn't show up at Lookout Landing. So I did do that, but beyond that, I was just like, I'm going to wander in with 3 hearts and just like get obliterated by enemies that do like 12 hearts of damage.
It's the best way to play.
And then I did the Gerudo area first, and then that was super helpful for me to have this sort of like electricity bomb arrow thing that Riju has. And that was something that it was easy for me to activate because there was only one sage. And it gets more difficult to pick out which sage to activate when you have a bunch of them following you around, because they're all just running off in different directions and all of that. So one piece of advice, if you actually need something if you need a specific thing, try actually dismissing the other sages, which you can do in the menu by just like dismissing their medallion in the pause menu. For that fight, so that you can be like, all right, because for some of the bosses or whatever, you'll be like, I need Riju's ability, and you don't want to accidentally be like, oh no, that's not Riju, that was Tulin. So because I like to keep them all around just so that they all hang around and beat everyone up while I run off. But like when I need a specific ability, I actually disable some of the other abilities to make it easier.
That's the way.
Yeah, I kind of play the opposite. I turn most of them off all the time unless I need something, or if I'm going into like a big fight, then I'll bring them all out. But I don't like having a whole crew following me all the time.
Yeah, I mostly keep them all turned, at least the 2 that I have right now, and I think I'm going to continue playing this way, they're mostly turned off until I have a specific use case that I need to fulfill. And I am kind of denying myself some extra combat potential, right? Because I do keep forgetting that they are doing damage to enemies in addition to the things that they do, right?
Yeah, and especially like Yonobu, the few times that he actually lands a hit, he sends enemies flying every time. So it's basically like you have a permanent, very rare chance to hit heavy weapon swing that will toss enemies
will headshot enemies.
Dude, Tulin
I love playing bowling with Yonobo.
Yeah, that's really fun.
Because have you gotten those boss bokoblins and then there's just like 30 bokoblins?
Yeah, you just roll him right through all of them. It's so much fun.
Well, that's something I'm going to try before too long. That sounds like a great time.
And I do keep forgetting that Yonobu can blast open rock formations for you, which I probably should do more often.
You would have way more bomb flowers.
More bomb flowers, and I wouldn't have to constantly carry around a sturdy stick with a rock attached to it.
Right.
So, yeah, that's going to be nice now that I'm remembering that is a thing.
Both Yonobu and Riju can break rocks.
Yeah, Riju is. I didn't know that till I think Cody told me.
Well, that's really cool. I didn't know that, and I just got her. So yeah, I'm excited to try that out now.
Okay, here's another one. What is the outfit that you find yourself wearing the most? And let's start with Cody.
Paraglider outfit.
Ooh, yeah, I like that one.
Flying squirrel suit.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
Do you have all 3 pieces, or just or I only have 2. I haven't found the third one yet.
Yeah, so for the sky, it's paraglider outfit. For the depths, it's the glow-in-the-dark outfit.
Oh, that's a good one.
That paraglider outfit, I believe with that one, once you get to 2 levels of upgrade, you no longer take falling damage while you're wearing all 3 pieces.
That's not true.
You can just...
No, I still take falling damage. I have before.
This is...
all 3 pieces.
This is 2 levels of upgrade from the Great Fairy. This is its set bonus.
Got it. Thank you. I didn't know that. Cool. That's exciting.
You no longer take falling damage while wearing all 3 pieces.
That's really cool.
There you go. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So I'm a more boring. I had a go-to outfit kind of arrangement in Breath of the Wild, and now that I have it, I've mostly stuck with it. It's very practical. I wear the Hylian trousers just for the defense, and then I wear the Desert Voe Spalder for the heat resistance, and I wear the Snow Quill hat for the cold resistance. So I just always have 1 level of each, unless I'm going into something specific.
Yeah, I like it. It's practical.
I feel like that would all look pretty good together too.
I mean that sounds pretty
not too goofy.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah. I myself am wearing, so in Breath of the Wild, once I got the Champion's tunic, like I'm a slave to trying to
make Link look like he's supposed to look.
Yeah, stay consistent with like box art, right? Like what's the canon appearance of Link, right? I shouldn't care about that as much, but I do for whatever reason. So in Breath of the Wild, I was always a Champion's tunic, Hylian trousers, Hylian hood, and in Tears of the Kingdom, for a while I was doing Champion's leathers, Hylian trousers, Hylian hood, and now as we were discussing before the start of the podcast, I switched out the Hylian trousers for the Sky trousers because I think they look really good with the whole outfit. But also, I have removed any and all headgear from my version of Link because his long flowing locks just look too stinking great when he's not wearing anything. He's got a whole head of hair, and I think he looks like a badass. And yes, I'm taking a huge defense hit, and maybe that's not the smartest thing I could be doing, but Link looks great.
That's true. So for me, I am much like Josh in that I had an outfit in Breath of the Wild, and it is still my outfit today. And it is the Fierce Deity mask with the soldier's armor on chest and legs, because man, it just looks so good. Link looks like a knight that was resurrected from the dead, and the Fierce Deity is like his new afterlife persona, and I'm just super into it. And also the plus attack bonus from the Fierce Deity mask, just that permanent +1 attack bonus, is really helpful. And the defense bonus from Soldier's Armor is super great. As I was roaming around the Gerudo Desert, I went and got the sand boots so I could run faster, and just wore the Desert Voe armor. I love that Desert Voe pauldron things. It looks really, I think that's probably the best looking singular piece of armor in the game. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's my favorite. That set is my favorite of the sets from Breath of the Wild.
I don't love the headband action with the man bun on top, but like
not my favorite either.
Yeah, I just think it's so cool looking. Yeah, so that's where I go with it.
Okay, 2 more quick questions. 1, starting with you, Cody. What is your favorite piece of in Breath of the Wild? It was amiibo gear, not necessarily armor, weapons too. But in Tears of the Kingdom, obviously, you can just find those all over the place. What is your favorite piece of amiibo gear, which is to say, a piece of gear from an older Zelda game in Tears of the Kingdom?
I'm really enjoying some of the Twilight Princess set.
Yeah, I actually, so I wish I could say that of the older gear, I liked the Skyward Sword stuff the best, but the Twilight Princess green tunic, I think, is probably the best iteration of the green tunic. It looks very, very, very good.
Yeah. How about you, Josh?
So I haven't found very many pieces yet, and I'm having trouble thinking of what they even are. I have the Ocarina of Time tunic, so I'll go with that one.
Classic.
But yeah, I've only found a few, and I'm kind of blanking on what there even is. But yeah, that one I've got and have upgraded, so I can use it reasonably.
Yeah.
How about you, Matt?
Fierce Deity mask. I think it looks amazing in cutscenes. I think it's really cool that the eyes glow in the dark in the depths. Just flat out, it is probably the best looking piece of anything in Zelda in general.
Not a lot of weapon talk here, but for me, I'm really appreciating the dusk bow. And
ooh, it's on my wall.
Yeah, it's not as good as it was in Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, it had like an infinite, like glowy straight shot. Yeah. In Tears of the Kingdom, it does have a drop after a certain amount of time. The bow itself looks great, and once you find it, it's easy to go keep getting it again because it reprocs in that one location every blood moon. So,
oh, good to know.
Yeah, so you could have a dusk bow, which is the bow of Twilight, right? You could have that in your inventory permanently if you wanted to. One of the things that I'm chasing right now is and Matt already has this.
I do.
I have found a way to acquire the white goddess sword from Skyward Sword.
Yep.
And I'm chasing that pretty hard just because I think it looks amazing, and I'm led to believe I'm led to believe it has a pretty cool combat bonus in addition to just looking great. So
yep. So I have both of those things. I also have the Fierce Deity Helix sword. All three of those items are in my house on my weapon pedestals.
Yep. And distant, not even distant. Third place for me is I know that you can get the Helm of Twilight, so Midna's Helm, and
Fused Shadow Helm. Yeah.
Yes, and in this game, it actually gives you gloom resistance, which
that's really nice.
That one,
which sounds very useful.
The gloom resistance stuff all looks really good. The gear that gives you gloom resistance.
So I've seen a picture of it online, and it looks like you're basically a large Poe from Ocarina of Time. It's kind of that same outfit, just if you were a person and not a ghosty.
Well, it's pretty
cool.
You look like that person who's chilling in the gatehouse in Hyrule Castle Town in the future.
But you have a pointy hat instead. Yeah. But other than that, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Last little rapid fire question here. Oh, here we go. Okay. Shrines in Breath of the Wild or shrines in Tears of the Kingdom? Cody.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Josh. Matt.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's actually one of the most impressive things about this game is that the glow up in shrine design from Breath of the Wild. And, in Breath of the Wild, they were no slouch. There were some fun ones.
No, they were great.
Right? Tears of the Kingdom has impressed me so much in its ability to make the shrines more interesting and more mentally challenging.
Yeah, agreed. Does anybody have anything to say on that? Because I do have one more question.
Okay.
But I'll take a beat if anybody else has anything to
Josh
add
or Cody, if you have anything to add to that.
They're just better designs. They just learned from Breath of the Wild and improved on it. I think it's one of maybe the easiest, simplest to just factually state. Like, it just feels like they just are better.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think they impress me with the degree to which a bunch of them are actually tutorials for the game in a way where it's like, here's a fun thing with the Ultra Hand and all this kind of thing that I bet you've never considered before. Like, I did one recently where there was like a spinning fan and then you had to attach a flamethrower to it, and then the flamethrower was spinning around, creating a big circle of flame. And I was like, I can do that. I have the stuff in my inventory to do this. I've just never considered it.
Yeah. So, okay, my rapid fire question is very brief, and I'm saying like 3 to 5 sentences, not run-ons. How do you feel about dungeons, the 4 main dungeons in this game, or the ones that you have played so far?
Cody first.
All right. Well, let's see.
Well, there's one of your sentences right there. I'm just kidding. Keep going.
I think that I like them, but just to keep in mind, I liked the dungeons in A Link Between Worlds. I liked the Divine Beasts in Breath of the Wild. I'm the person that they're making this stuff for. I'm the kind of person who was like, oh, well, Twilight Princess is okay, but their dungeons are too long. And I'm really enjoying just the bursts of creativity that you get in these new games that don't hold you up for a long time. So yeah, and I think it's an improvement on Divine Beasts in that they've color coordinated them. They've been like, here's a fire temple, it's fire themed, but I think it's mostly similar to Divine Beast, but I think that's fine. Okay, Josh.
No, I mostly agree with Cody. I would say they are. The theme of them is better than the Divine Beast theme, which was mostly an issue of the whole game is Sheikah themed, and it just kind of gets old because the shrines, all of it is the same theme. But so just having the theme better is fine. But I also think the Divine Beasts are given too much crap. I think they're actually quite good as dungeons. It's mostly that theme bothering people. And I would even say, like, I've said this lots of times in the Discord already, the terminal is just a key. It's just a small key in a chest. It's just not, right? It's the same thing in here. Like, I don't think it needs to be a small key in a chest. It's just a thing you go get. And so, yeah, I think the new dungeons are great. I think one of these new dungeons is in the conversation for like top 10 Zelda dungeons of all time. The other ones I don't think are in that conversation, but they are still solid dungeons.
And would that be the Gerudo dungeon?
Yes. I think the Gerudo dungeon is. I know you haven't done it, Lyndon, so I don't want to say too much about it.
It is phenomenal.
It combines some of my favorite things about other dungeons that I've even talked about on the podcast before. So I'm completely thrilled with that dungeon.
That has me hyped out of my mind, and in some ways makes me happy that I'm saving that one for last.
Yeah,
right?
I
did it. I guess I did it third.
I did it third as well, and I loved that dungeon. It was so good. So my thoughts in general are, I like them. I think they are an improvement over Divine Beasts. Mostly talking about that sense of place and that the theme and the aspect of all of that stuff. I think that's on point. I still am of the opinion that I want a more traditional dungeon aspect in that I want more enemies. I think Gerudo dungeon did this pretty well. There were kind of a lot of enemies, which was good, but I want more enemies. I want a mini boss. Like small keys and locked doors, I don't really care about. And I think you're totally on point, Josh, that getting the 5 things, that's a fine mechanic. But a lot of these dungeons feel like that's all that it is find a way to get the 5 things. And there's not like interstitial in between any of that. And I do want here's the mechanic of the dungeon, do the beginner level of it, get to the intermediate level to unlock the first 2, then get to the advanced level to unlock the last 3, or like whatever.
I don't think you're going to ever have that in a 3D Zelda game ever again.
I don't know. I disagree with that. I really disagree with that. And I think that we will continue on this Breath of the Wild style of game for a long time. I think that they will continue to iterate and expand on the dungeon aspect of this game as it continues, because that is one of the most important aspects of Zelda in general. So I don't necessarily think that we will never get that again. I don't think we'll ever get do a dungeon to get an item, beat a mini boss to get said item, and then continue on the rest of the dungeon with the item and unlock other things. I don't know that we'll ever do that again. Maybe we will. I don't know. But I do think that there is plenty of room in this style of game to have a very traditional style of Zelda dungeon. And I think that is only a good thing.
What do you think, Josh? It sounds like you kind of had...
Yeah, I've got... If we can just spend a minute on it, right? I think, like, again, this is like imagine terminals if they were just keys, right? Imagine if your little sage buddy had joined you halfway through the physical building that you're in, right? That you all talked a few weeks ago. It was like, well, when did the dungeon actually start, right? If we assume the dungeon started when the word fire temple showed up on the screen, right? It's like, imagine if your buddy had not shown up until you had already unlocked 3 of the keys or something, right? It's basically a dungeon item. In Breath of the Wild, they gave you your item, Mipha's Grace or whatever, as a reward for beating it. In this game, they gave it to you just before you get inside, or have you do something ahead of time to teach you how it works. They could do something where they give you an ability halfway through a dungeon. And there's no reason that it would break this new style of dungeon. It would just divide the dungeon a little bit into 2 parts. And so I think we will see that experiment. They also did bring back mini bosses, right? They're just not in the physical buildings. They are scenarios that happen outside in the lead up to the dungeon, and not all of them. Like y'all talked about the Rito dungeon, and it doesn't have that.
It does have a flux construct, but I mean,
that's true. Yeah, the other scenarios, I think all of them mostly have some kind of unique encounter that you don't see otherwise. That maybe is there mostly to teach you something, to teach you how some other mechanic you need is going to work. But they have a mini boss that's unique, and I think the big experiment this time was that lead up to the dungeon being like part of the experience. Even if I'm writing a guide and I'm not calling your 2 hours with Tulin in the sky actually part of the Wind Temple, it kind of is just part of the whole experience of doing the dungeon.
And now we're back to...
So I think they'll continue just experimenting on how to bring in those old Zelda elements and also keeping this stuff. I think the get 5 things mechanic also might feel better to Zelda veterans if they just weren't labeled on the map. Or if the 5 things weren't literally like, get 5 locks and unlock them, if they were just like 5 different things. Like, we need to restart this machine, go find a gear here and go charge up a battery here and go turn on the power. Like, go do these 5 things in any order, but they're 5 different things, might feel just thematically different. So like, they just have to play with it. I think the size of dungeons, sorry, I know I'm kind of running on. The size of dungeons is partially restricted here because they care a lot more about a world that feels correct now than they used to, especially in this persistent world with no loading screens, because the dungeons don't have loading screens anymore. Only the shrines do. And you can go back into them and they're just part of the world. Like you can climb around the outsides of these dungeons as if they're just any other cliff. And that restricts the size to an extent because it needs to fit into the world like it should. So where before they didn't really care that the sand ship in Skyward Sword was the correct scale, like the scale of the sand ship in the world could be different than the scale of when you walked into it. And the same was true of basically every Zelda dungeon forever. You walk into the Forest Temple, but that doesn't mean the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time is actually back there in the Lost Woods. Right? It's teleported you to a totally separate map. Now, a castle in the woods has to fit in the woods, and they want it to feel like a real castle. They're not going to arbitrarily make up some weird gear mechanism inside that just no one would ever put in a castle.
Yeah.
And so that has restricted it a little bit, that the things have to feel real.
And it's interesting to me that we're classifying that as a restriction, because I think for the longest time, if we would have told people, hey, dungeons in this Zelda game are going to be to scale with the world and accessible in the same way as any other part of the overworld, right? That would have sounded like a fever dream to people, right? That would have been so enticing, and I do think it is. I think it's a great thing. On the whole, I do think that there's still some experimentation that needs to happen to make the dungeons feel like they have the magnitude that we're used to living within that system. I think you're totally right, Josh. So again, I've only done 2 of these dungeons. I've done Wind and Fire, and Wind was spectacular. Loved it. And again, now we're back to that whole thing. This is going to be a nightmare for us to try and parse when we actually get to the season where we're reviewing this game, because I really do truly believe that the events leading up to the dungeon itself should be classified as part of the dungeon. It was an integral part of that experience, and I feel very strongly about that. In the Fire Temple, it was so interesting to me because, without talking too specifically about what the mechanics in this dungeon are, it seemed to me like there was a set mechanical way that you were maybe supposed to get from one floor to another, right? But then also, you can still just climb the outside walls of this dungeon, right? You can use Ascend to get from one floor to another if it's available. You can strap a rocket to your shield, and you can just shoot up way high above everything else. And in doing so, are able to circumvent some of the, more on rails solutions that were presented to you to do this. And that is invigorating and interesting, but also I'm still trying to parse in my own mind about whether I think that makes for a better or worse dungeon experience.
-5 points for your on the rails pun.
Yeah. I don't know. I need a lot of time before I really come down on one side of that or the other.
There are a lot of people, like even on the ZU team. I don't know if I've heard a single person say they thought they did the Fire Temple the intended way.
I definitely did not.
Quotes,
Hell
the
no.
intended way. Lots of people were just like, screw all of that. I have rockets.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Don't overcomplicate it for yourself.
So I did it the correct way,
also
because I needed to be able to write a guide.
Well, there you
go. Fair enough.
But there you go. But also, yes, maybe overcomplicated. That was the struggle I was doing the entire length of that dungeon. I wanted to have the experience, and I wanted to get that dopamine rush of having felt like I solved a specific puzzle. And I feel like that dungeon is set up in a way to where you can do that, But also at some point,
I feel like you can though. I actually did part of that Fire Temple definitely wrong. Someone else was watching me and they're like, you could have just done this, right? And I was like, oh, that's really what they meant you to do. But it's like me figuring out some weird way to do it still gave me that rush that I was like, I'm so smart that I figured this out. Because it wasn't just strapping a rocket on. I was using the mechanics. I was just using them maybe in not quite the intended way. And so it's just kind of where do you draw the line, and what gives different people that feeling that you did it and you're the smartest person ever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cody, do you have anything you want to throw on this pile?
Look, I think we probably just need to stop talking about the intended solution in some cases and just go, this is all intended. Because that's the kind of game this is. You can travel around on carts or whatever if you want, or you can strap a rocket to yourself and go flying. And either way, you're making use of the map and 3D space and your items and everything. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree, guys, and I think we've encapsulated most of the feelings about dungeons from a wide variety of folks. So that was kind of the end of my question. I don't really have too much else to add. I think, Lyndon, we've come to the end of our Discord questions as well. So.
Yeah, I definitely do. Honestly, great discussion. What this is really showing me is that I think Tears of the Kingdom is the kind of Zelda game, even more so than Breath of the Wild, where it really is just so much up to the individual experience of the person. And that's exciting to me because I don't know that Zelda has ever really been that before. Breath of the Wild was in some ways, but previous to that, it was all so curated, right? And we're in kind of a brave new world here where everybody is playing this game completely different ways. I think that's very exciting. So I think that's the pin that I want to put in the conversation around specific mechanics and stuff. Of course, it would not be an episode featuring Cody Davies without giving him an opportunity to just go nuts.
Hijack the podcast for whatever he wants to say.
Hijack the entire podcast and bring us, take us on a minecart track into someplace completely different from where we started. So, Cody, how you doing over there?
All right. Well, welcome to part 1 of the Sacred Realms rundown.
The first time Cody's ever gotten to do part 1.
Yeah, this is usually Matt's thing.
Yeah, part 1 is, of course, Australia Facts. As always, part 1 is Australia Facts. Today's Australia Fact is that in 1966, Australia switched to the dollar, but before that, it was using the British pounds system.
So wait, you guys use the US dollar?
No, we use the Australian dollar.
Okay, that makes more sense.
We switched to a metric system.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
Geez, Matt, way to show your privilege. It's not all about the United States.
I was confused, which is why I asked the clarifying question.
Other people have dollars, Matt.
I'm going to come across the table and slap you.
Yeah, look, we have dollars, we have states, we have all sorts of things here that that you also have over there in the United States of America.
How do you feel now, Matt?
I feel justified in asking my clarifying question. Thank you very much, Dick. Please continue, Cody.
Okay, well, so part 2 of the Sacred Realms special rundown is called Matt, do you intentionally mispronounce a character's name in each game?
Yes.
And this one is dedicated to Unobo, or Unobu, as Matt continually says, despite there being no U at the end of his name.
I'm pretty sure I said Unobo.
You've said Unobu at least 3 times.
Okay, whatever. Sure. Then yes, I do it intentionally. Just, we have an entire sub-thread of the Discord devoted to phonetics discussion because of the way I pronounce things. And without me, that sub-thread would not exist.
Nobody even picked up on Lurline Village.
No, they did.
As you said it last.
You missed it. Yeah, they did.
Okay,
you missed it. Yes, because you don't pay enough attention to our community, Lyndon.
I love our community.
You don't pay enough attention to them.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Cody, I do intentionally mispronounce things.
Part 3 of the special Sacred Realms rundown is called Wow, the Water Dragon in Skyward Sword doesn't know what she's doing. I just always...
This is my favorite one.
I just always need to include that one.
It's the best one.
It's just ever useful.
How has the water dragon wronged us now, Cody?
Oh, well, look.
Explore the depths and find out.
Yeah, explore the depths and find out. Look, because what could happen in this game in the future is that maybe we'll get a new Hyrule, and maybe there'll be climate change, but it will be the same Hyrule. And we all know who causes climate change.
The water dragon.
The water dragon.
Obviously.
That's right. And so, this is just a shout out to the water dragon for causing climate change.
In the future.
So, in the future.
In the real world, the water dragon would be one of those people who invests heavily in coal and also is buying like property on the Nevada state line. Right,
so that they can take advantage of the coal rights of that property. Yes.
Well, no, so that when the sea rises, they have beachfront property. Right.
God,
they're playing the long game.
She's the worst.
Yeah. So just always watch out for that water dragon. Part 4 is of course Bloopy Trails, and my Bloopy Trail for today is Tears of the Kingdom.
Just in general.
This is notable for being an actual part of our normal podcast.
So. And I think it's part 4.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty sure it is part 4.
There you go.
So yeah, just putting in some regular parts of the rundown here. Part 5 is called Visit ZeldaWiki.wiki. And this is that's the fan wiki, which is going to have better versions of. So for those of you who weren't in the loop on all this, the Zelda wiki had a split. The fandom wiki branched off, and all of its community went off to form its own independent Zelda wiki. And they've been quite active in Tears of the Kingdom cataloging everything and all of that. And so now it's got different content than the fandom one does, but the fandom one will still appear top of the search results and everything. But if you can visit zeldawiki.wiki, then that's the independent Zelda wiki. So,
good to know. And I mean, I know that's a little inside baseball on the way that the fan community operates, but definitely important to know the distinction between those two things, especially when it comes to knowing who, the passionate folks who are creating content for one versus the other, right? It's good to know where those things break down.
Yeah, look, it's something that's important to us as a fan community to support local providers of content, to shop local, basically. But local here means not fandom, which, for those of you who don't know, the history of Zelda Wiki is it used to be run by Zelda Universe. It was founded by Zelda Universe and was for the whole Zelda community. And then it got sold to a different company, Gamepedia, which was quite, it was going quite well, except that Gamepedia then got bought by fandom and then merged into fandom and ended up having all of the things that people didn't want in terms of intrusive ads and all of that kind of thing. And so eventually the community split off again to form their own wiki, but it's tough on traffic level because they had identical content to the fandom wiki, and the fandom wiki dominates traffic search results. So it's really hard to get going again as a competing wiki. But they've been hard at work for Tears of the Kingdom, so hopefully they can carve out their own niche. Part 6 is called Visit Zelda Universe, and also visit ZeldaMaps.com is the other thing I'll say. It is, ZeldaMaps.com obviously is going to be spoiler warning for every location of every shrine and all of that in the game. But if you are near completion and you're struggling to find, you're struggling to find some wells or caves or pieces of armor or whatever that you missed, then it's going to be valuable to check out Zelda Maps. And you can log in, you can create an account so that you can keep track of, here's the Korok seeds I've already done, etc.
100% co-signed. I mean, that sounds like an incredible resource. If you feel like you're at a point in your gameplay experience with Tears of the Kingdom where it's time to check in on some of that stuff, you're trying to be as much of a completionist as you want to be, then yes, go check that out. A lot of people doing a lot of very hard work to make that happen, I would imagine. So, yeah. I mean, look, Zelda has got one of the best fan communities in the entire world of pop culture. I truly believe that.
Absolutely agree.
And knowing that a lot of those people are working on a volunteer basis to make a resource like this a possibility, please go support that. That sounds like so much worth your time. Can't recommend it enough. I know that I will be checking out on it.
And if you have the technical capabilities and time availability, volunteer. And if you need to help getting in touch with someone to do that, we can get you in touch with the right people.
Unless you're a terrible person or you're controversial in some way on social media. And in that case, maybe don't volunteer.
Fair enough.
Yeah, if you're too mean to Max on Twitter when he posts hot takes, then that's disqualifying. You can only be slightly mean to Max on Twitter.
Being too mean to Max gets you blackballed on this podcast any day of the week.
Absolutely true.
All right, last question I have before we get out of here. Cody, are you excited to put down Tears of the Kingdom for 5 minutes so that you can go play some Phantom Hourglass and be on this show in its coming season?
We already know Josh is, which is why we're not asking him that question.
I'm going to ask him.
Oh, you are? Okay, fine.
Yes.
Cody, you first.
Yes, I will be excited to play it. I need to go and find my cartridge, though. It's been a while since I've played Phantom Hourglass, but I think it's definitely it's an experience that is I think in some ways it's underrated by Zelda fans in the sense that a lot of Zelda fans put these games right at the bottom of their lists for reasons that are not necessarily because the game is bad, but more because the series was not going in the direction that they liked at the time, which is sort of what you've heard from myself and also Max about games like Skyward Sword. Is there was sort of a bit of like built up like we're more linearity, more Ocarina of Time again, even though the game itself was great. There was sort of a residual, effect. So I think without just looking at it holistically, I think Phantom Hourglass is going to be a fun one to have a look at.
How about you, Josh? You ready to take a bloopy trail, I guess, into a completely different Zelda game?
I started it before Tears of the Kingdom, so I at least got the beginning out of the way. I was already planning to play it this year. So, yeah, I'm ready to try it again. I've played it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. So it's not super new to me particularly, and I don't. It's near the bottom of my Zelda list, but I don't dislike it. Right? I've said lots of times there's no bad Zelda games. It's just near the bottom of my list mostly because I played it on the Wii U last time I played it, and that was kind of frustrating.
Five steps down on the list.
So pour one out for the Wii U.
That was the only way I had to stream the game, so I was playing on the Wii U. That hurt it a bit.
Well, I will say,
no, I think it's good.
I will say, Matt, while we were having this conversation, I just ordered 3 bootleg copies of the cartridge from Etsy. So there you go. We're going to be playing it on our 3DSs at $20 per copy, which is better than I feel like you could do at most places.
Yeah, seriously.
There we go. No, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a fun one to get into. Hey, how many people can say that they, at least big ol', capital Z Zelda fans, how many of us can say that we went from one completely new Zelda gameplay experience to another between 2 games, like back to back?
Yeah, seriously, gonna be very, very, very different.
So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Josh and Cody, seriously, thank you so much for coming on tonight. This has been a really great conversation. I know that it was kind of all over the place, but there was some really fun stuff that we kind of covered here, and I appreciate y'all's perspective very much. And really, more than anything, appreciate the work that both of you and all of the team at Zelda Universe are doing to document all of these things in a lasting way. And from the perspective of people who are just passionate about doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great being here, but yeah, we're having a good time at Zelda Universe putting everything together.
Well, we're glad to hear it.
And this has been super fun to talk about.
Definitely glad to hear it. Looking forward to catching up with both of you all during our Phantom Hourglass season. I think we're going to be relying on a lot of the knowledge that both of you have for having played this game 1 or more times, just because this is the first time that neither Matt or I have ever organized a season up front without having played. And actually, that's not true. Zelda 2. And once again, Josh, you were a very big help there. So I think we're going to be relying on you in a very similar way. Hopefully,
this game's structure is more clear, right? Like, I don't know how much you want to look up a guide first, but it's like it is a traditional linear Zelda game. The part that's not traditional about it is that it's played with a touchscreen, right? Otherwise, it is just kind of do a dungeon, do a thing between the dungeon, do a dungeon, do the thing between a dungeon.
I don't know that playing the game on a touchscreen has much of an impact on our arrangement of the season. So there you go. That's good to hear. Before we get out of here, Josh and Cody, how about you let everybody know where they can follow you if they choose to do so? Cody, we'll go with you first.
You can follow me on Twitter at Magicody, Magicody. And you can follow the stuff that we do at Zelda Universe at zeldauniverse.net.
Josh, it's over to you.
So I'm Watcher Joshua on platforms. Kind of taking a step away from a lot of it lately, but Instagram's probably where you'll find me most at the moment.
Wonderful. Go give both of them a follow. And again, keep it keyed into Zelda Universe. Lots of great work happening over there. So, gentlemen, it's been a great time. Again, look forward to catching up with both of y'all in the Phantom Hourglass season. I think that's going to be a fun adventure for Matthew and I, if for nobody else. So,
did you just call me Matthew?
Is that not what's on your birth certificate?
You had never call me Matthew.
Matt and I are going to have a great time playing Phantom Hourglass. I think all of y'all will too.
Thank you.
Again, that's happening 2 weeks from now. We've got one more Tears of the Kingdom episode between now and then. So, of course, Matt and I are both going to continue playing Tears of the Kingdom, even in parallel with Phantom Hourglass, probably. But
absolutely, we will.
I'm not even close to done with that game. Regardless, thank you for keying into this conversation. It has been a really great time. If you are interested in participating in the next episode, just a reminder that is going to be a live Q&A episode with members of our Discord channel. Any patron of any tier at Sacred Realms, patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod can get access to that Discord channel. And we are going to be interacting with that entire community while we record that episode. So should be a good time. The last few times we've done that have been certified blasts. I think Matt and I are not tired of that format, and we're going to continue doing it because it seems to be a fun time for everybody.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Matt, I think it's time to get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Alrighty, y'all. If you enjoyed today's episode and you would like a little extra Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod and become a patron. If you've got no rupees, it is not a problem. 5-star Apple Podcast reviews are a great free way to support us. More reviews means that more people see our show. That makes us very happy. Hylians. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sacred Realms Pod for updates on the podcast and for behind the scenes action. Sacred Realms will be back next Wednesday with our final episode covering the release period of Tears of the Kingdom. We'd love for you to play along with us and to share your thoughts on our social channels. Tears of the Kingdom can be played on the Nintendo Switch. But in the meantime, may your hearts be full, may your arrows never miss. We'll catch y'all next time. Sacred Realms is an independent podcast production which is produced, edited, and mixed by me, Lyndon Willoughby. Our music comes from Zelda and Chill by Mikkel and is graciously provided to us by Mikkel and Game Chops Records. Zelda and Chill is available to stream on Spotify or to purchase directly from GameChops.com. Finally, our thanks go to Nintendo for creating such exceptional and innovative experiences.